inside of me. You better watch out if your enemy's a road ahead of full prophecy. To be the greatest beast the world has ever seen. I feed him every day like the bones clean. I feed him all the hate and he grows me. And he gets claws real big, pissed off quick. And if you cross him, you might drop dead. Metaphorically, of course, settling the score. Never getting bored, loves of blood and gold. Always wanting more freedom from the source. They don't really listen until they feel the force of body. And if you start shit, you be hard-lived in the darkness. Torn apart quick, you left scars ripped. You be chewed up and discarded.
And this world ain't right, won't accept it. Negative energy, I expect it. Once it's in your mind, it's infectious. So fight for your life and reject it. You better give me space, I'm protective. My adrenaline spikes when I'm threatened. And if you stay in my way, I'm aggressive. Cause when there's no exit, I'll kill when I'm desperate. When there's no exit, I'll kill when I'm desperate. And this world ain't right, won't accept it. Negative energy, I expect it. Once it's in your mind, it's infectious. So fight for your life and reject it. You better give me space, I'm protective. My adrenaline spikes when I'm threatened. And if you stay in my way, I'm aggressive. Cause when there's no exit, I'll kill when I'm desperate. When there's no exit, I'll kill when I'm desperate. dreams. I push a mind to a limit where it needs to be. I work blind, got vision I don't need to see. I'm picking mind over matter, I believe in me. I need to find more hours in the day to breathe. Need to find more power in the way I be. And when my mind turns sour with the painful scenes, I need to scream out loud, I can't stop me.
Hello and welcome to my Mind Over Your Matter. My name is Rick. Um, we're going through some shitty, crazy times right now. The world is in danger. I'm not trying to scare anybody. It's the fucking truth. We're in danger. And if the people of this world don't take this serious, we are all going to die. I'm just letting you know right now, it's going to happen. I know I'm guaranteed to die, but I don't know how am I going to die. But if we continue the pace that we're going in, it's going to be pretty quick, and it's not going to last. We're not going to last, and it's just very scary. But there's so much breaking news right now going on. Let's just go straight to the news. Let's cover it, and I'll do my best throughout this show. There's major cyber attacks going on right now. You may not be feeling it. I am feeling it. I think my system is going a little crazy. I don't know if it's going through some cyber attack or something, but it took me a long time just to get my computer just to get up and going. And I've never had this problem before, and all of a sudden it's just acting crazy. So if the show goes completely black, I'm sorry. It's what we're dealing with this world right now. We have two fronts of this world, and this world, I don't know if it's going to be a world war, but it seems like it's getting close to it. We're getting very close to a world war, and this is it's just the way it's going to be. It's just the way it is. And we're just here as witnesses to watch what everything happens. Be careful going out. Doesn't matter where you go. Always keep your eyes all around 360. Make sure you know your surroundings. You know where your exits are. You know, if you're going to a movie theater, sit pretty close to the exit. If you're going to the mall, be careful. If you're going anywhere in this world, you need to handle and go travels with extreme caution. And this is just a beginning. And it's so scary. But we have news reports of a refueling jet crashing, I believe, in Iraq. Let's just go right to it. It's just, this is crazy.
Just want to bring you some breaking news now regarding the situation in Iran. We're hearing from the US military saying that an aircraft has gone missing over western Iraq. The US military saying it's aware of a loss of a refueling aircraft in friendly airspace. Just a bit more here from US Central Command saying 2 aircraft were involved in the incident. One of the aircraft went down in western Iraq. The second landed safely. Mark Stone, our US correspondent, is in Washington for us. Mark, what more are you hearing?
Well, you pretty much said it there, Jonathan. We've got a little bit more detail that is just coming in from Tampa, which is the headquarters of Central Command, Tampa, Florida. And they are saying at this stage that this was not due to hostile fire or friendly fire. 2 aircraft involved. One is a KC-135. That is a large refueling aircraft. It looks to non-experts like a civilian plane, effectively. It's a Boeing jet, very, very large, probably has a crew of around about 6 people, including the pilot and co-pilot. That is the aircraft that is missing. The other aircraft, they haven't said what it is, but that landed safely, we're told, in western Iraq. It's probable that that second aircraft was a fighter jet that was being refueled by the plane that is now missing. So not, we're told, as a result of hostile fire or friendly fire. But nevertheless, these would have been 2 aircraft heavily involved in the operation in Iran, and it's an illustration of the risks associated with this mission that the Americans and the Israelis are undertaking, and clearly huge concern now for the crew on board that KC-135, which is missing, and we're told that rescue efforts in Iraq, we assume, are underway.
Yes, Mark, just stay where you are, if you would, for the moment. The latest from US Central Command. It is aware of the loss of that US KC-135 refueling aircraft, the incident occurring in friendly airspace during Operation Epic Fury. Rescue efforts are ongoing. 2 aircraft, we understand, were involved in the incident. One of the aircraft, as you were saying, went down in western Iraq. The second landed safely due not to hostile fire or indeed friendly fire. Still waiting to find out the real cause of what has happened there. And as we've been discussing on the programme, Mark, of course, the situation in Iran, Donald Trump making this huge decision more than well over a week ago now to bomb Iran is going to have massive repercussions amongst Americans. Many, of course, who are saying back to him, hang on a minute, President, you're the man who, when you were elected, promised we would not go to war, we would not get involved in the Middle East.
Yeah, and his response to that, which has come in various forms over the past week, is that peace is peace through strength. He's repeating that phrase again and again, and clearly when you kind of drill down into what that means, he will argue that it requires and it means taking risks, and risks come with danger, of course. But you're right. If, as and when, and I think he has set the American people up to expect that there will be more casualties, American service people who are killed as a consequence of this. As and when that happens, the risk is that he will lose support among his base, as we were talking about earlier. It remains for the time being strong. In terms of what happened here, I mean, as we said, what it looks as though, and I'm speculating here as we wait for more details, but what it looks as though probably happened is this was a mid-air refueling accident. You probably see
a mid-air accident
with the way this works, but it's extraordinary. You have this huge tanker aircraft with a hose out of the back of it. The fighter jets come alongside, and then they're refueled mid-air. It's a very, very skilled operation, but it's clearly fraught with risk as well. And it may well be that is what happened. That one of these mid-air refueling processes went wrong, and one of the aircraft, the larger refueling aircraft, is missing. Rescue efforts underway, we're told, and another aircraft, presumably but not confirmed to be a fighter jet, landed safely in western Iraq.
Yeah, indeed. I've been in one of those refueling aircraft and seen firsthand
there's cameras
how
on those
delicate
jets.
that operation is.
So
and quite often they miss the hose the first time or even the second time because the aircraft have to fly so close together. I mean, it is remarkable to watch. Let's just read that CENTCOM statement once again for people joining us. You can see it on your screen. Just there, US Central Command is aware of the loss of a US KC-135 refueling aircraft. The incident occurred in friendly airspace during Operation Epic Fury, and rescue efforts are ongoing. 2 aircraft were involved in the incident. One of the aircraft went down in western Iraq, and the second landed safely. This was not due to hostile fire or indeed friendly fire, and obviously a rescue operation ongoing in western Iraq for the crew of that aircraft. Just remind us, Mark, how many American military personnel have lost their lives so far in this campaign?
It's 7, I believe, that have died. Only by they've died as a consequence of Iranian drones and missiles that have hit American air bases. There were a couple of friendly fire incidents right at the beginning of this conflict 10 days or so ago. They were 2, I think it was 2 American jets shot down by Kuwaiti air defense, but in both those cases, the American pilots ejected and were safe. I'm just looking at the detail of this particular plane. It's a very old plane. The KC-135 has been in operation since 1957. But the scale of the operation that the Americans are currently undertaking in the Gulf, in the Middle East, is so huge that it was clear to us as we watched this sort of maritime armada and air force gathering in the Middle East. It was clear that they were throwing everything at this. So a huge number of aerial and maritime assets, including aircraft, that some of which date back quite some time. It's got a very good safety record over many years. It hasn't been hasn't been an accident with one for many years. But as you say, these mid-air refueling is fraught with risk.
Yeah, it's big time, full of risks, and let's keep it moving because we still got more breaking news.
By this tragedy in our community.
We have breaking news right here. Law enforcement in Norfolk, Virginia, holding a press conference with updates on that deadly Old Dominion University shooting. This is Special Agent
from
the FBI speaking right now. Let's take a listen.
Extreme bravery and courage by containing the containing the shooter and stopping further loss of life. The FBI is now the lead investigative agency investigating this as an act of terrorism. The shooter has been identified as Mohammed Baylor Jallow.
Of course, Mohammed.
In 2016, Jallow was arrested and pled guilty for attempting to provide material support to ISIL, now known as ISIS. Jallow was sentenced to prison in October of 2017 and was released from prison in 2024. FBI Norfolk's Joint Terrorism Task Force and our evidence response team responded to the scene, and we will continue to have a physical presence here at the scene as we process the evidence. Additionally, we are conducting other investigative steps into Jallow and the specifics of the shooting. We have dedicated analytical and tactical support. We are aiding in this investigation throughout the entire time. We will continue to work alongside of our partners and those in the community to find answers. The FBI continues to ask for the public's help in providing any information that could lead us in resolving this investigation, and we remind the public that any detail, no matter how small, could be useful. A collection of those small details may help paint a complete picture. We ask that the public submit their tips to www.fbi.gov/ODU shooting. Do you have any questions for me or for my partners here? Yes.
With still little details that we know about the shooting so far, how are we able to confirm that this was an act of terrorism?
How it was an act of terrorism? I can tell you that we have confirmed reports that prior to him conducting this act of terrorism, he shouted stated Allah Akbar, and he was formerly a subject of an FBI investigation in material supporting terrorism.
Agent, were there explosives in his car?
We have no information about any explosives in his car or anywhere else at this time.
Did he have one weapon?
As far as I know, we only know of one weapon that he had on his person at this time.
What kind of aid was he giving to ISIL 10 years ago?
He wanted to conduct a terrorist attack similar to that in Fort Hood, Texas.
What? And he was in this country?
Is there any mention of the...
oh my God, man. What's going on?
None whatsoever.
How did he stay in this country?
How was he deceased?
There were students that were in that room that subdued him and rendered him no longer alive. I don't know how else to say it, but they basically were able to terminate the threat.
So he was not shot?
He was not shot.
He shot 3 people?
Correct. We have information that he shot 3 people.
There was
wow.
Virginia Beach for treatment. Was that person?
They choked him to death?
For grade?
They probably choked him out.
So I don't have any information at this time about the specific, life-threatening or not otherwise to the 2 that are still alive. But at this time, we're respecting the victims of the shooting. That includes not only the ones that were shot, but all of the people here at ODU I consider our victims. This is a tragic event, and I do ask that you look at that. You're all part of our community too. And so I just want to throw that out there too, to give the respect and the time needed to provide that additional information about the victims.
You say he was released in 2024?
Correct.
What was the Bureau's intelligence level on him since then?
So I don't have any of that information right now. That's because this is an ongoing investigation. After we learned of his name, we confirmed that he was formerly subject of material support to terrorism investigation and obviously was sentenced for that. But I don't have any information indicating that he was known or an ongoing problem.
We'll take one more question.
Do you have more specifics on how he was subdued?
Yeah, the brave
They
ROTC
choked
members
his
in
ass
that
out.
room subdued him. And if not for them, I'm not sure, what else he may have done. But that's exactly, they confronted him and they subdued him, and he was no longer able to conduct any further attack.
Thank you, everyone. That was last one? Yeah. Go ahead. Okay.
Hi.
For ROTC students involved, is there any reason to believe that they were targeted?
Well, I believe that at this time, we have to take all the information that we will receive from the victims. So I don't want to make any preemptive judgments or anything to this at this time exactly. Keep in mind, we're going to look at forensic information, anything that he may have had interest specifically for any targets. And because I don't have that yet, I can't confirm that at this time.
Do you know how many people were in the classroom?
I don't know the exact number of the people in the classroom.
How long do you suspect this investigation will last?
It's a fair question. It really completely depends. So we obviously are going to dig in, and this is why we need the public support to where he may have been before this, who he may have been in contact with, if he had any other supporters, anybody providing him information. So we have to track every single lead down, and that's is exactly what the FBI will do. Every single lead, we're going to track down the veracity of the information and make sure that we have a full investigation with as much information, again, to ensure that there isn't anyone else that he may have been receiving support from as well.
Do you have any evidence that he was self-funded?
No, I don't have anything at this time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
That's fucking crazy.
All right, you were just listening to a press conference there in Norfolk, Virginia. Authorities giving more details about that fatal attack on Old Dominion University's campus that led to the death of one person and injured two others. That suspect, the person they say that was behind this attack, was sources telling us that man was previously convicted of providing support for ISIS. The law enforcement that we saw there at the press conference confirming that, saying that he was convicted in 2016 of providing material support to ISIS, sentenced in 2017 to 11 years, later released in 2024.
There's going to be a lot more of this.
We also learned that it was the brave ROTC students who subdued him, ultimately killed him. You're looking at his details there. That suspect,
what a beautiful
Mohammed
name, right?
Jola, again, is convicted in 2016 of attempting to provide material support to ISIS. Now, so for more on this, I want to bring in ABC's Christian Cordero, who has been tracking this story for us all afternoon. And Christian,
information to ISIS. Why is he out?
To dissect a lot of updates in that press conference that we learned, but chief among them, and this was something that we probably felt this time, but this is now going to be investigated as an act of terrorism.
No shit,
with
Sherlock.
the FBI taking the lead, as you heard there, Alex. Yeah. A few things stood out. One, of course, was the timeline of sorts, right? How this happened, and the fact that for how tragic it was and is, that it also seemed to have been the threat, as they called it, was neutralized within a fairly short amount of time. And it gives you the sense that perhaps these ROTC members were trained in a way to subdue this kind of a threat. And we didn't really get specifics as to how exactly he died. You heard her kind of skirt around anything that may seem like a cause of death of sorts, but she did say that he wasn't shot. So it will be interesting as this investigation progresses to get a few more details about the heroes who stepped in and very likely saved many lives, although there is one person who is dead and 2 others who are injured and in the hospital getting medical treatment. The other thing too is we haven't really gotten a sense of why ODU and why Norfolk, Virginia. That wasn't necessarily addressed.
ABC,
it
you're
is still
fucking
so
idiots.
early, of course, in this investigation. These investigations oftentimes take months, if not longer, to be properly and thoroughly complete. So a lot of questions, Alex, but certainly gives you the idea that this is just such a tense time on college campuses and in the nation overall.
Listening to this bit.
Yeah, well, and Christian, we're actually now getting our first look at this suspect, Mohammed Jallah.
ABC is a bunch of fucking idiots.
This image? This is the image that was released to ABC News of that suspect. Who was believed to have carried out this fatal attack on ODU's campus,
and he was part of the military or what?
2 others before being subdued by those brave ROTC students. Something else that stood out during this press conference is
I'm fucking confused.
They believed that this was an act of terrorism because there were confirmed reports that suspect Jallah shouted Allah Akbar before carrying out this attack. We also learned that the previous
infiltrated in
providing support for ISIS, then ISIL, that he wanted to carry out something similar to what happened.
Okay, I have to pause this shit because these motherfuckers are just repeating themselves. Okay, this name, red flag. Convicted in 2016 of attempted to provide materials support to ISIS. Why is he out in the public if he was charged with this and convicted of it? He 11 years in prison in 2017 and released in 2024, December 2024. Why? And then he's a former member of the Army National Guard. How the fuck did he become a member of the National Guard? They're in our system, man. We're it's cancer. We're fucked. We're in like stage 3 cancer right now, and pretty soon it'll be stage 4. But they're in our system, and we're really screwed.
At Fort Hood, he was later convicted, like I said, in 2016, and then sentenced to 11 years in 2017. But Christian, one of the things going forward, we heard the FBI say they're still asking for the submission of public tips here and trying to kind of piece together what's transpired since he was released in 2024 till now.
Right, because they said that he wasn't necessarily on the radar as of recently, right? He wasn't known to be somebody who was more recently causing trouble as of his release in 2017, rather 2024, I should say. So he served 7 years of an 11-year sentence. Prosecutors were asking for 20, but it was a guilty plea that ended up getting him that conviction, which oftentimes leads to a little bit more of a lenient sentence, just for what that's worth. The other thing, when you talk about kind of putting all the pieces together, on top of what he shouted and on top of his prior conviction, they also looked in his car, didn't find any explosives there. It appeared that he had one weapon on him, which again, that was neutralized soon after entering that building and firing at least a few shots. But it will take an effort from the public to kind of fill in some of the gaps, because it's been, maybe about a year and a half or so since he was out of prison. And it's unclear right now what his ties were to ODU and to that ROTC program in particular, if he lived in Norfolk. All of those things will, I would imagine, come to light sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and certainly questions as to whether or not he was acting as a lone wolf. Christian Cordero, thank you for tracking this for us.
Thank you.
ABC, you're a piece of shit. I can't stand ABC. I watch it just to be a little bit fair and balanced here, but I just don't have the fucking patience to listen to them. I just don't, especially when they continue to repeat the same bullshit. It's like you just said that like a few seconds ago, and they're constantly repeating themselves without any new like updates or anything. I can't. I'm sorry, but I just can't with these fuckers. All right, let's go ahead and let me set this up here. Got a bunch of videos here. It's going to be as fast as I can. I'm going to try to do this, but there's a lot going on, and I got a lot of videos that I got to resize real quick. Let's go ahead and jump over to this one here. Okay, here we go.
Fox News alert. Sources telling Fox News the truck that the suspect used to ram a Michigan synagogue is registered to a naturalized U.S. citizen, this time from Lebanon, who lives in Dearborn, Michigan. All right, let's bring in former Michigan.
Great, Dearborn, Michigan, of course. The terror.
There's so many details here. Now we'll try to take each detail responsibly with only what we know. But let's start with Dearborn, Michigan. This is where this individual is from. Dearborn has been in the headlines as a very, very predominantly Muslim community with a Muslim community leader.
Absolutely. And the leader has definitely come out and said anti-Israel things. He's tweeting anti-Israel comments quite often, but that is not reflective of the entire community. I want to make that clear. We have some great politically conservative Muslim friends there that certainly would never condone this kind of behavior. And this is a terrible situation, but you have to think about what your recent guest, Jesse, just said about Rashida Tlaib. The congresswoman there is also very anti-Israel. And so there are certainly concerns. Are there sleeper cells there, or are there just individuals there that could be radicalized? And potentially that's what we're seeing today.
And just to be clear, Dearborn, Michigan, we've done stories, I believe, on Dearborn right here on this show, wherein that mayor has said that certain people are not welcome in Dearborn. He looks forward to them moving out of Dearborn, that Dearborn is essentially a Muslim city.
They got to get rid of all those people out of Dearborn.
Yeah, absolutely. He has definitely not been welcoming of the Christian community. And as you can see, he's obviously said things about the Israeli community too. But I do want to look at today as somewhat of a success story too, because we have an incredible sheriff there, Sheriff Bouchard, who's obviously worked with Temple Israel to make sure they're safe. And as much as people say they don't want to have security guards in their schools or in their houses of worship, I don't want that either. But look, it was successful, and that's the world we live in. And we should see this as a huge success, that those kids are all safe.
You're absolutely right, Tudor. It's an absolutely huge success, and it's a tribute to the heroism of the people on the ground there at the temple today that made it that way. Unfortunately, it wasn't that way at Old Dominion University, where one student was killed that we know of so far in another shooting. In this case, there's another commonality, both naturalized citizens to America. At Old Dominion, from Sierra Leone,
get them out,
now with West Bloomfield, Michigan, it's Lebanon, a natural.
And the thing is that these fuckers, and let me bring it to me. The problem is that our justice system is a bunch of fucking idiots. We got judges that are fucking paid by these terrorists. Let's put it out like that. That's what listen, money buys anything. It buys these judges. You give them, look, here's $50,000 and let in all my friends from Somalia here, or let in all my friends from Lebanon. Here's another extra $25,000, and they get paid off. And then they're like, all right, well, I'm not going to send them back because, they have to have their fair share and they have to go through the court system to get. No, we don't need to do that. No. If they're here illegally, and I don't care if you're naturalized, they're here. If you commit some kind of bullshit crime like this, guess what? You got to get the fuck out. And the fact that this guy, the one that shot at Old Dominion, he was arrested he was convicted in 2016, right? He served from 2017 to 2024. That's it. The guy is a terrorist. He's giving information to ISIS, and yet you're just going to let him walk? And why is he in America, walking around in America for a whole year, maybe a year and a half? He was in our streets, and he was not deported. He wasn't kicked out. He was nothing. They let him out. Like, okay. And I want to know who the fuck let him out. That's what I would like to know. Let's go back to this. Go back to Fox News.
Naturalized U.S. citizen. What do you take from that?
Hey, Rob, what's up?
What President Trump has been working on is very critical for this country. We don't know how
How
many
you guys
people
doing
are
tonight?
here that have
a
not
crazy night
assimilated,
tonight.
just like what the Congresswoman was just saying. If you have not assimilated, if you do not want to be an American, we need to know that. And that's a hard thing for a lot of people to stomach, that there are American or there are people who are naturalized citizens that don't want to be Americans. But that is what
Why the
President
fuck are
Trump
they
ran
here?
on. And the American people want to make sure that if you're here, you're safe and you want to be one of us.
Tudor, how far is Dearborn from West Bloomfield?
It's very close. This is the problem that we have in this area, is that we are concerned about whether or not there are radicalized folks there in Dearborn, and that is a very culturally diverse community. Everywhere in the suburbs of Detroit, we are very culturally diverse. You heard him talking about the Chaldean community. Those are our Christian Iraqis. They were helping out with the Temple Israel folks today. There are a lot of cultures there, and that's America, right? We don't want to see our cultures clashing like this, and certainly not in a situation where it can become dangerous. But that is definitely what we see on the outskirts of Detroit. There is quite a few different cultures living together.
All right, putting responsibly the details that we know together, but only what we know from them. Lebanon, U.S. naturalized citizen from Dearborn. I don't think it should go without noting as well. Lebanon, home to one of Iran's primary proxies in Hezbollah. We don't know yet what motivated this attack, but we have all these details now coming together. Tudor Dixon, thanks for being with us here today.
Thank you.
All right, so let's keep it moving. Benny Johnson.
There's only one word to describe America's immigration policy, and it is suicidal. Our toxic empathy will be our undoing. Enough third world criminal and legal migration from places that hate us and people that are going to kill us when we bring them over here. And that's happened today in two separate terrorist attacks. America is under attack right now. We've been saying keep your head on a swivel, and this is why. A shooting at Old Dominion University in Virginia, a large and prominent university, 20,000 students go to this university. The gunman is dead. He's injured two people.
You got full tank of gas. You know,
this monster.
Gas is getting a little
Who was
expensive
the
now.
person, the terrorist who opened fire at Old Dominion University? If only there were signs. Well, there were signs, actually. The man who opened fire at Old Dominion University was a terrorist walking on the loose who had ISIS affiliations. We knew about this. His name is Mohammed Jallah. He's a naturalized U.S. citizen, wasn't born here, doesn't belong here. He's from Sierra Leone. How the hell did he even get over here? Who stamped his paperwork? Convicted in 2017 of providing material support for ISIS, traveled back to Africa multiple times, joined ISIS. We put him in prison and then let him out to go commit murders, to go kill and commit a terrorist attack. This is what the DOJ said on his arrest in 2016.
There's reports right now
praised
that 300
who killed
TSA
5
workers
U.S. military members of a terrorist attack in Chattanooga, Tennessee in 2015.
I'll repeat that. 300
and stated that he's been thinking about conducting a terrorist attack. Well, ladies and gentlemen, look at that today.
Democrats are
dead. Correction from the earlier tweet. It is a breaking news environment right now. As shooter, terrorist opens fire at Old Dominion University. Suspected gunman has been killed. 2 victims. Wow, if only there were signs. Oh, wait a second. There were signs. He was arrested for being a terrorist, and we couldn't deport him permanently? We had to leave him here. Our toxic empathy is suicidal. I'm reliably informed the attacker of Old Dominion University is Mohammed Jallah, the same Jallah who was previously convicted of providing material support to ISIS. Look at this. And then planning terrorist attacks in the United States of America. First-hand witnesses to this attack
I only got 11 years.
All true.
Did they describe those people at all?
The description of the shooter, they said he was a Muslim man. I know he was a student at ODU.
Was
shooter Mohammed Jallah. He was arrested for providing material support for ISIS. Why is he free to go kill Americans instead of in Guantanamo Bay for the rest of his life? Or maybe better yet, back in Sierra Leone in a prison there. He's convicted. He was let out of federal prison in 2024.
Who
December
let him out?
2024. Goodness gracious. The identities of the two involved have not been released. Officials say the shooter was killed. 2 others were injured.
That means he only served
Campus under
7 years
lockdown.
out of his 11
A
years.
multitude of gunshots, and people were screaming.
Why did they
Shooting
let
took
him
place
out?
shortly before a separate active shooter situation unfolded at a synagogue in
He could be in jail
Michigan.
for life.
Let's head on over to Michigan now. Synagogue
For
shooter dead.
treasonous acts.
This all happening at the exact same
Like,
time.
hello?
Can't tell me there's no connection. There's got to be a connection.
I
Shooter
can't.
killed after driving a car into Detroit synagogue preschool, opening fire. Cops say the children and staff survived the attack. This guy rammed his car through the synagogue and then was driving down the hallways. See here, the black smoke, the smoke billowing out of the building, was driving down the hallways, firing
I'm not even
guns,
smoking yet. I haven't even smoked.
shooting firearms, and trying to mow down kids here in Detroit. Was able to ram his car
like this.
through the hallways, was able to rampage through the entire school. Thank God no students or staff were injured in the attack. A dozen parents sprinted into the building to get their children. After getting approval from police, security guard was taken to the hospital. Being struck by the vehicle, the security guard who was there was able to actually take down the attacker, who had explosives in his vehicle. Apparently, his vehicle was completely packed and lined with explosives. He's trying to blow up, so he's trying to do as much collateral damage as possible and then to blow up the building. While he was at it, you can see here the smoke billowing from outside of the school. Terrifying. Look at the black smoke coming from the top of the school there. I'm told law enforcement source that the suspected shooter at Michigan synagogue was armed with a rifle, rammed the vehicle into the building, was killed in the shootout with armed security. Vehicle caught on fire. Why did the vehicle catch on fire? It caught on fire because the suspect's vehicle ignited because of a explosive that they had in the vehicle, driving down the hallways at high speed before being neutralized by a security guard. Thank God.
Was work in progress. We're through an abundance of caution clearing the vehicle for IEDs or any explosives. We've got a significant number of bomb dogs on site, bomb techs on site, and all of that's going to be done to check the boxes. We have deployed resources all across the county, just in case, out of an abundance of caution, that there may be a second.
Look at this. Crews reportedly found a large amount of explosives in the suspect's vehicle that slammed into the Michigan synagogue. Police have said they're working to clear the vehicle safely. A lot worse could have been done.
As well, that emergency responders apparently found a large amount of explosives in the back of the vehicle, which just gives you even more insight into the sinister nature of what happened here.
So thankful for the brave security guard and a security plan that was updated just last month to prepare for the worst. The worst happened, thank God they were ready. And the commentary here, in other words, law-abiding armed citizen appear to have put down a terrorist, saving countless lives. Civil Rights Division is aware of the attack. It was clearly an attack on Zorhan Mandami.
Oh, Lord.
Too soon? I don't know. No, it's not too soon. Just glad the mayor is safe from this targeted attack. Mayor of New York claiming to be a victim when ISIS attacked a peaceful protest in the streets of New York. Let's look back in the last couple of weeks. Muslim bomb, a New York protest. Austin Bar gets shot up. Jewish synagogue attacked. Norfolk, Virginia campus attacked by Muslims. Do you see what is happening? Last 2 weeks, Islamists attempt to carry out terrorist attacks in New York. Islamist kills 3 people in a mass murder and a violent attack on a synagogue in Michigan. Sheriff confirmed armed security confronted the shooter. Schools, synagogues, and other vulnerable locations should have trained armed guards. Seconds matter. You cannot wait for the police. Yes, correct. Look at this. Active shooter at Detroit synagogue. Look at the law enforcement response here.
That's
Goodness
wild.
gracious.
And that's in Michigan, okay? And
the sheriff says that there are no injuries, thank God, because of the security guard at the school. Someone's shooting up a synagogue in Michigan. You never see anybody shoot up a mosque, and that's pretty relevant. All Jewish organizations are now on a lockout protocol. Abundance of caution. Active shooters, abhorrent evil, pray, ladies and gentlemen. Thankfully, nobody was hurt here. But who knows? These things develop. Active situation. Here's what we know. You have to keep your head on swivel no matter who you are. If you are an American, ensure that you are safe. You have a God-given right to carry and arm yourself, to defend yourself, and to put down a threat. It's not perfect, but it's the best we got. It's a lot better than having nothing. That's what most people around the world have. So take advantage. Carry, keep your head, again, on a swivel. Stay frosty, stay extremely salty. It's Benny. Pray for the victims today. See ya.
Yeah, it's that's just, listen. It's not gonna get better. It's gonna be like this for until, and I have this feeling, I have this premonition, and I saw this happening. Us unleashing a really strong technical weapon in Iran, and putting them in a very bad position, and it's not going to be good because China's going to want to know what the hell that weapon is, and Russia is waiting to see what type of weapons the United States are going to use. The United States are going to they cannot prolong this. They cannot prolong this. This cannot go on for 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, months, years. It cannot do that. They're going to have to punch them right in the face and knock them the fuck out. And the only way you're going to be able to do that, and I'm sorry to tell you, is going to have to be nuclear weapons or an atomic weapon. It's going to come down to that. And I don't think Iran wants an atomic weapon dropped on them, because that will kill so many people. They will have to evacuate all the people of Iran, and the United States within an hour could drop so many atomic weapons that it would destroy Iran. I just don't want that to happen, but man, it seems like something like that's going to happen. Okay, let's keep on. CBS News. Ugh. Can't stand CBS. I can't stand this bitch either.
Vows to keep the Strait of Hormuz closed. In a statement today, Iranian state media statement attributed to Mujtaba Khamenei said the maritime passage will continue to be used as a, quote, tool to pressure the enemy. International Brent oil prices extended their gains following his statement, topping $100 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate, the U.S. benchmark of national oil prices, rose by a similar margin, topping $95 a barrel. Americans continue to see higher prices at the pump. According to AAA, the national average price per gallon hit nearly $3.60 today. It marks a 2-cent rise from yesterday and a 35-cent rise from last week. Yesterday, the president ordered the release of 172 million barrels of oil from the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve to curb rising prices. Energy Secretary Chris Wright says those releases will begin next week and take roughly 120 days. Laura Santacola joins us now. She's a senior writer for Barron's. So, Laura, President Trump's release from the reserve also comes as the 32-member countries of the International Energy Agency also say they'll release some 400 million barrels from their reserves. But you're right that the current crisis might be one the reserves weren't designed to fix. Why?
That's correct. The reserves are meant for a supply crisis, and we certainly are in one. However, one could argue right now what we really have is a logistics and shipping crisis, and that's because as was noted earlier in the program, about 20% of seaborne oil flows through that Strait of Hormuz right in Iran's territory. That is really critical, and it's not something that additional barrels on the market can necessarily fix, although some of the countries in Asia that are going to be releasing barrels, that should have an impact in their region, but it's not a fix for everybody in every country.
I touched on this with Ellie, but you report that some vessels are getting through. Which ones?
I mean, very few. And as of the past few days, almost none. There's a daily update that I've been reading. I think there's been one commercial vessel that's gone through, 0 oil tankers. And of course, there are parts of the Iranian shadow fleet and other vessels that are carrying commercial goods that opt to turn their satellite signals off, which you're not meant to do, and that makes it a little bit harder to track. But even with the data that we do have, it shows that very few boats are really making a run for it, in part because of the risk is really that elevated. There are boats, on fire in the region, as of the last 24 hours.
Are oil prices expected to remain high as long as the strait remains closed? Are there any workarounds? And is that sort of what Iran is banking on?
Yeah, the administration in the U.S. and across the world, global administrations are trying to come up with workarounds. But this is something that's been in Iran's back pocket for decades. I mean, really, as long as we've been having conflicts in that region. Like I mentioned, it's a critical choke point. They are able, with very few resources, to disrupt shipping. All it takes is some mines, drones, anything really to deter vessels from getting through by wounding passengers, impacting cargo. It doesn't have to be something big and fiery, but it's enough to control a very, very, very narrow waterway that's directly in their region. So yes, what the world really needs for prices to go down is the strait to be reopened, because unlike in 2022, when we put sanctions on Russian energy and oil prices spiked, oil markets are fungible. There were workarounds that were able to be done. Here, it's a very narrow, 1 mile that ships can really get through that strait. 20% of global oil needs to get through it. It's really key for that to be resolved quickly.
Laura Sanicola, thank you.
Okay, let's keep it moving.
This is the capital of Lebanon. New video of Beirut as Israeli airstrikes are hitting the city center. Operation Epic Fury now approaching week 3 with no sign of slowing down. U.S. forces continue to target the regime's military infrastructure. However, Iran is retaliating, launching attacks at our own key ally, Israel. And today, Iranian state media shared the very first statement from the so-called selected new supreme leader since his appointment, since they selected him. Here's part of it. We didn't hear from him directly, of course, I should mention that. We didn't hear his voice. They say that this is his handwriting, and they had a member of state-run TV read it aloud. It did show an image of him. It's a headshot, while that person read the prepared statement from Muqtada Khomeini, in which he vowed Iran would keep up attacks on its Gulf neighbors.
He's not alive.
And keep
I don't think he's
blocking the Strait
alive.
of Hormuz. This is Outnumbered. I'm Harris
I don't
Faulkner.
think he's
Here with
alive.
our co-host Kayleigh McEnany and Emily Compagno. Also joining us today, Kennedy, host of Kennedy Saves the World podcast, and Guy Benson, Fox News political analyst and host of the Guy Benson Show on Fox News Radio. Iran's deadly launching attacks on 2 oil tankers near the Strait of Hormuz overnight. The White House has told Fox just in the past hour, quote, President Trump is fully prepared to provide U.S. Navy escorts through the Strait of Hormuz if he deems it necessary. Our military has destroyed well over 20 inactive mine-laying boats, with more to come. The Iranian regime is also targeting Israeli cities with ballistic missiles, continuing to, and now they are using cluster munitions against Israeli citizens. They scatter and kill indiscriminately. They're like many bombs coming out of an opening shell of one big missile. Even if the missiles are intercepted, cluster munitions released before the missile is destroyed still make an impact. Iran has been repeatedly accused of using this weapon in civilian areas, a tactic banned by more than 100 nations around the world. Israel estimates half of the ballistic missiles Iran have fired have been cluster munitions, and Iranian attacks are also coming digitally. The pro-regime group is now claiming responsibility and for street credibility for hacking an American medical devices company. The attack targeted Stryker. It's based in Michigan. They produce medical equipment.
Of course,
and it
Michigan.
caused a global network disruption to their Microsoft apps, the company said in a statement. They literally, Kayleigh, watched their cell phones and computers. They watched information wipe away in real time.
Yeah, it's remarkable to think about as this progresses day by day. If I could, let me focus just for a moment on the energy situation, because the White House just came out with an announcement that they will be suspending the Jones Act. The Jones Act is a 1920 law that mandates that U.S. goods come to the United States on U.S.-made ships, and that there are not goods coming in, foreign goods coming in on foreign flag ships. They're suspending that, and the White House tells me on background that the administration can assure it will not have an impact on shipbuilding. Here's why I bring this up. I know President Trump, the businessman, has thought this through. And I know that because I look at the first Trump term and what he did to make this country a net energy exporter. It's remarkable, all of the work fracking LNG, and it has given us some immunity from gas price increases. We have seen increases, absolutely, at the pump, but they are, I would note, far below the Biden era high. The Biden era high at one point was $4.70. It might have been above that. Now you're seeing prices at the end of yesterday about $3.57. But President Trump has his eye on that. And this action just announced literally moments ago tells me this is a president who's thinking strategically for the American economy, but also thinking down the line. We cannot have Iran have nuclear weapons. 4 presidents have said that. It kills me when the Democrats say, what's the objective here? Well, guess who announced the objective? Obama, Bush, Biden, all of them announced the objective. Iran cannot have nuclear weapons. One president put actions behind the objective, and that same president is looking at the economic conditions, and I am fully confident that he will make the right decision as to when this winds down, keeping all of these factors in mind.
Well, and Kennedy, the president is also listening to oil traders like Phil Flynn. We had him on last hour. He's listening to, what the market says. He'll say this looks like it's going to end very soon, and it actually has a positive impact by a lot on the market. So he knows that he can kind of move and groove right now and make some things happen.
Yes, there are more hormonal tantrums in the oil market than with a teenage girl with PMS, you would say.
Oh,
yeah. Well, unfortunately, we're not going to see stability for some time, but that is absolutely what the oil market is begging for, because as you continue to inch northward in these benchmarks and oil gets more and more expensive, that's what Iran is trying to do. They're trying to create as much instability as possible because they know they have the choke point for such a massive bulk of the world's oil. I don't know what's going to happen here. I don't know when the bombing is going to take effect. I know that Iran has been anticipating this, and with the cluster munitions and the cheap drones, they are throwing us for a little bit of a loop. It is very interesting to see what the Pentagon has in their quiver in terms of electronic warfare and some of those high energy lasers. The question is, how quickly can they be deployed? How do you power them? And will using those bring an end to the war, which is very necessary, not only for the oil markets, but for politics? The president's own party is putting pressure on him to wrap this up as quickly as possible. That is difficult when you have so many loose ends, and you've got Iran on the offensive in wily ways that maybe people didn't anticipate before we saw what we're seeing.
Well, and Emily, I have learned that we can secure that Strait of Hormuz with our U.S. military. The challenge now are the mines that Iran has laid at the bottom of the strait now. And so we are working on ways to be able to identify the locations of those, because they'll detonate, if you will, from hearing a ship come into position. It doesn't have to be hovering over. So there are some things that can be done as well, because in that statement that this new, and we don't have proof of life, but we'll see what happened to Muqtada, and all of his family members died, but we'll see if he's still alive, and that's really a statement from him. But what he was saying was that this doesn't open until the war is over.
Right, and we statements yesterday that he indicated that it was cleared of mines, and also that our military destroyed 16 Iran. So there's optimism there in terms of the safety of our troops and our allies. I know, too, just for a second, you guys, let's just talk about the mainstream media, because New York Times, for example, ran 2 separate pieces on the Secretary of War's violent rhetoric, and they drew some kind of
distinction between the morality of prior actions underscoring attempts at securing or ensuring freedom for those liberated peoples or peoples that were previously under thumb, and that somehow this is about vengeance and retribution. They equated the Operation Epic Fury name with some type of sort of vengeance and violence on the part of the Secretary of War, when we know President Trump picked it because he said, that's the one that didn't make me fall asleep, from a group of 20 that was given to him. So I think what we're seeing here, as always, is in this complex nature, as you articulated so many salient points about oil, about the region's involvement economically and also geopolitically. Like, we are now dealing with a very new situation geopolitically that we haven't before, which is relying on the strength of our Middle Eastern allies and on the strength of intelligence that prior administrations have bucked. And by prior administrations, I simply mean Biden. So I think here we're looking at a really new space of America and the strength of our diplomacy within the Middle East, in addition to our military might, and in addition to recognizing the proxies that don't just stop at one hacking job and at some type of link with the Islamic regime. They're actually latent all over. So I think what this deserves is nuanced thought and thoughtful coverage. And as always, we're not getting that from the mainstream.
So it wasn't just Biden, though, because as you were talking, I was thinking about those letters between Obama and Ahmadinejad. Like, you know, we haven't had presidents in the past, it would seem, that had the type of relationships that you're describing, Emily, with our Middle East partners. And part of that, I would say, Guy, was brought on, I don't know if it was strategy or just kind of luck of the game. I tend to think that it's strategy, having those relationships bolstered very early on in his second term with Trump.
Well, and I think also the Iranian regime is now attacking all of its neighbors, right? We're used to the regime trying to kill Americans. They've been doing that for nearly 5 decades. We're used to them attacking Israel or threatening Israel. They want to wipe them off the face of the earth. But there have been thousands of attacks launched on the Arab Gulf states who are now fully unified behind the United States and Israel against the Iranian regime. Some of that's self-interest because they're getting attacked by this malign neighbor, but some of it is the type of diplomacy and relationship building that we've seen from Team Trump and the president himself over the course of years. That's one point. The second point is, I don't want to just quickly blow past this. I think what you said underscores the shambolic nature of this regime right now. They are on a back foot, to put it mildly. We have a statement allegedly from their new supreme leader, who no one has seen. If he's alive and well, he is so paranoid that he doesn't want to be appearing on camera anywhere, right? If he's alive and well. His predecessor, who he knew pretty well, is dead. The group that got together to select a new leader, they were bombed by the Israelis. So there are rumors out there that people have been fleeing Tehran within the leadership, anyone who's left, to go deeper into the country to try to escape some of these attacks. They are really in a very bad place, and we've put them there.
You know, let's talk about that for just a second, just to give people an idea of how big this country is. Yeah, we know it's 90 million people, but you've seen places in Asia where you can get a whole lot of people in a smaller space. This is the size of like 3 Californias. It's huge. So to talk about going to war against that country, we have hit strategically military targets and done all of that. That says a lot about our military, that we can do that.
100%. It's a huge credit to us and to our Israeli allies and some of the Gulf Arab allies. The other key factor here is the Iranian regime might be able to scuttle, skitter away and try to hide in this massive country. One additional disadvantage that they have, beyond just our military prowess, is their population overwhelmingly hates them, because they've been putting these people down and slaughtering them and, just oppressing them for decades. So that's something that we also have going for us and that they don't have going for them. Their people hate them for good reason.
I would note it's exactly unlike Iraq, where you're changing hearts and minds. There are no hearts and minds to be changed here. The hearts and minds have been changed by the evil Ayatollah.
Great point. Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-host, Horace Faulkner.
But we got to keep it moving, Emily, because we got more to watch. Let's go ahead and put the volume button on this one.
Well, Iranian attacks on shipping and oil infrastructure are escalating as the Muslim nation's leadership says they have no plans to back down on the face of unrelenting airstrikes by the US and Israel.
It's going to take an atomic weapon, I'm telling you.
Iran's new supreme leader remains out of sight after being injured in an Israeli airstrike.
As soon as
he says his country will
Iran
surrender
uses
and the fighting continues.
a nuclear weapon,
Less than a week
That's when
after
the
being
U.S. will
elected to
bomb the
succeed
fuck
his
out of
father,
Iran.
the new Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei issued a defiant message. Read by a news anchor, Khamenei says Iran will seek revenge for the deaths of its top leaders and
It's not
school
even
children
alive.
mistakenly hit by what was likely a U.S. missile. He's keeping the Strait of Hormuz closed until the war is over and told Iran's Gulf neighbors U.S. bases need to be removed. Back
Yeah,
home, the
that's not
focus
gonna
is
happen.
turning to Iranian threats to the homeland. Yesterday, an Iranian group took credit for launching a cyber attack on Stryker, one of the top medical device makers in the U.S. The FBI also issued a bulletin for law enforcement in California to be on the lookout for drone attacks, though experts say the size and scope of a strike like that is unlikely.
To pull off an attack like that, it obviously needs a lot of people. It needs a lot of materials.
Here on Capitol Hill, Democrats are demanding public hearings. They want Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth to testify under oath.
The American people deserve answers. Senate Republicans must listen to the outrage of the public.
But most Republicans say that's a non-starter.
It's another day in the life of the drama Dems.
Democrats are also raising concerns about the price tag. The first 6 days of the war reportedly cost more than $11 billion.
Wow. All right. So let's keep it moving.
Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt last hour writing, quote, "This post and story should be immediately retracted by ABC News for providing false information to intentionally alarm the American people." She goes on to say, "To be clear, no such threat from Iran to our homeland exists, and it never did." And I do want to point out, California, pretty quickly after, Governor Gavin Newsom came out with a tweet. He said this, Harris: "I am in constant coordination with security and intelligence officials." And he goes on to say, including those tied to the conflict in the Middle East, "While we are not aware of any imminent threat at this time, we remain prepared."
Okay, so they're just gonna be playing a little music, so I gotta cut this shit out. But so they're retracting. They got to retract that story because they posted a story on X that the FBI had warned Iran will throw these drones over at California. This had broke out yesterday, and I don't think they should have like reported that because now they put that in their minds. You know what I mean? So. And I'm pretty sure that's what's going on right now. Cause like, have you noticed? Let me go ahead and pause. It's just gonna be music and shit. So I might as well just speak. But remember when they were saying, oh, the sleeper cells, they're gonna wake up the sleeper cells, and all of a sudden, all the sleeper cells woke up. And I feel like they put this messaging out. Like it's like a trigger word for these people, and once they activate it, they're no stopping. This is going to be a very deadly year for us here in the mainland. And now there's like ABC reported, oh, and I reported this yesterday. I was on here yesterday, and they were talking about, oh, they're going to send drones from Mexico to California to blow up California. I'm like, why would they go after California? Why not Texas, New Mexico, Arizona? I mean, why California? Doesn't make any sense, right? Because it's all fucking distractions. That's what it is. So let's go ahead and continue on with some more news.
Ago, we learned that a U.S. military refueling aircraft has gone down over western Iraq as part of Operation Epic Fury, and that rescue efforts, as we speak, are underway. The area, which you see there on your screen, is described by U.S. Central Command as friendly airspace, and the military says it's working to provide clarity to military families on exactly what happened. So let's bring in CBS News senior national security correspondent Charlie D'Agata. He's joining us now with what we know, at least right now. Charlie, good evening.
Yeah, good evening to you, Tony. We just got off the phone with Central Command, CENTCOM, and they've said in a statement tonight, U.S. Central Command is aware of the loss of a U.S. KC-135 refueling aircraft. The incident occurred, as you said, in friendly airspace during Operation
Why do you keep saying that?
Rescue efforts are
Why
ongoing.
do you have to
Two aircraft were
emphasize
involved in
friendly?
the incident. One of the aircraft went down in western Iraq. That's the Al Anbar province. The second has landed safely. This was not due to friendly fire or hostile fire. More information will be made available as the situation develops.
Yeah, we need video.
According to the statement, we ask for continued patience to gather additional details and to provide clarity for the families of the service members. And I just have to point out, we understand that the two of the aircraft were involved were both refuelers. Tony?
All right, Charlie, thank you very much. Appreciate it. For more on this, we turn to CBS News national security analyst Aaron McLean. Aaron, great to have you here. We know so little at this hour, but what's in the realm of possibility? How could this happen?
Yeah, it's important to emphasize that we don't know. But what we do know is that operations, these aerial refueling operations that these kinds of aircraft do, are inherently risky. The whole point of the operation is to bring one plane in close proximity with another plane and physically touch a piece of one to the other to transfer the fuel. These crews have been at it now for well over a week. We're at day 13 of this operation. And it's easy to imagine things can go wrong up there in the dark.
You say they've been at it. What is the mission for this type of plane in skies over the Middle East?
Well, you have strike aircraft coming into Iran from all over the region, from places like Jordan, from places like Israel, aircraft carriers. Indeed, some of these strike packages come from the United States itself. So they need to top off on gas before they get into Iran. Topping off on gas also extends their time to loiter over targets now that we're in a more permissive situation in Iranian airspace. So it's part of the broader architecture of the air campaign.
So when you read the statement from U.S. Central Command, it's very carefully worded. They refer to a loss, and they are at pains to point out that it wasn't hostile fire or friendly fire. That opens up what? Accident? We're not sure.
Yeah, it starts to narrow it down. It's not hostile fire, it's not friendly fire, and it's also specified that there's two aircraft involved. We don't know, Tony, but I think it's very reasonable to ask questions about a collision.
Yeah, we will keep monitoring it. Aaron, thank you very much. Appreciate it on this breaking story.
All right. Well, it's not going to be good news. A lot of Cybermen are not going to make it. So let's continue here. Put the bottom up.
Moshe Bahamani has vowed to keep blocking the Strait of Hormuz in a first statement that's been attributed to him. But we still haven't seen him or heard his voice. This was part of a statement which was shown on Iranian state TV and read by a translator.
I assure everyone that we will not refrain from avenging the blood of your martyrs. The revenge we intend is not limited to the martyrdom of the great leader of the revolution alone. Rather, any member of the nation who is martyred by the enemy.
Bahamani has still not been seen in public since succeeding his father, leading to speculation that he's been injured or even killed. Meanwhile, 3 more cargo ships have been attacked in the Gulf overnight, reportedly by Iran.
Wow, that was
Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar!
No, you hear this shit?
Pushing the price of Brent
You
crude
heard
oil
him saying?
back above $100 US a barrel.
Wow.
Iran is continuing to strike its Gulf neighbors, claiming it'll keep doing so until
Yo, they're
US
gonna have to
bases
get
in
rid
the
of
region are closed.
a lot of those.
In
Oh my
Bahrain,
God, this is
Iran
gonna be so
attacked
bad.
fuel tanks near the international airport, causing a large fire. Elsewhere, smoke was seen rising from the Harir base in northern Iraq. That base was used by US forces previously, but was evacuated last year, according to the Associated Press. Israel's military has claimed it struck an Iranian nuclear site overnight that was used to develop missiles. The UN claims 3.2 million people have now been displaced within Iran since the war began, almost 2 weeks ago now. Israel is planning to expand operations in Lebanon after Hezbollah launched a massive barrage of missiles into Israel yesterday. At least 8 people were killed in Israeli strikes on Beirut today.
Wow, that's crazy. That's so crazy, but the music is just driving me fucking crazy myself. Let me see if we could just move it up because actually they're gonna come back.
Shipping and oil infrastructure are escalating as the Muslim nation's leadership says they have no plans to back down on the face of unrelenting airstrikes by the US and Israel. Rebecca Caster reports.
Iran's new supreme leader remains out of sight after being injured in an Israeli airstrike, but he says his country won't surrender and the fighting continues. Less than a week after being elected to succeed his father, the new Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei issued a defiant message. Read by a news anchor, Khamenei says Iran will seek revenge for the deaths of its top leaders and school children mistakenly hit by what was likely a U.S. missile. He's keeping the Strait of Hormuz closed until the war is over and told Iran's Gulf neighbors U.S. bases need to be removed. Back home, the focus is turning to Iranian threats to the homeland. Yesterday, an Iranian group took credit for launching a cyber attack on Stryker, one of the top medical device makers in the U.S. The FBI also issued a bulletin for law enforcement in California to be on the lookout for drone attacks, though experts say the size and scope of a strike like that is unlikely.
To pull off an attack like that, it obviously needs a lot of people. It needs a lot of materials.
Here on Capitol Hill, Democrats are demanding public hearings. They want Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth to testify under oath.
The American people deserve answers.
What?
Senate Republicans must listen
These
to the
fucking
outrage
Democrats
of
are a
Republicans.
bunch of
But
pancakes,
most Republicans
man.
say that's a non-starter.
It's another day in the life of the drama Dems.
Democrats are also raising concerns about the price tag. The first 6 days of the war reportedly cost more than $11 billion.
It's okay for them to fucking spend it in fraud, but no, for us, for freedom, no. We're not gonna. We can't pay for it. We don't have the money, of course, because all your fraudsters have it. Like, help me make it make sense. This world needs to blow up already. I'm waiting for the world to blow up. At least something galactic needs to happen for us to all die at the same time. Like, that's the only way this is gonna freaking fix itself. It's just we do not deserve to be here. We don't get along with each other. It doesn't matter how much you try. It doesn't matter what you do. There will never be peace on this earth because they just won't. It's just not possible. You know, it's just been like that ever since like humanity started here. You know, and the fact that people believe that we just popped out of nowhere and ta-da, humans are here out of the blue. No, we were dropped off here. And if you don't believe that, then, you know, that's on you. That's what I believe. And I tell you, my believing, it's more like seeing, because I see it. I feel that we were dropped off here. And the fact that how I know this is because look at the world. You got Chinese people that speak their own little language, and then you got Australians that speak their own little language, and g'day mate, and all this, you know, way they talk. And then you got the like all people from all around the world. It's just they're all different. We're just not the same. You know, we may have like the same organs and we may look a little like humanish, but we're all fucking aliens. Oh my God. Okay, so let me see what else I got here. Okay, here. Another craziness from CNN. Let's watch. Actually, we're going to watch that one next. We're going to watch what CNN had to put out.
Mojtaba Khamenei, the leader of the Islamic Republic, in their first public speech addressing the great nation of Iran and the brave fighters of Iran.
That's what CNN broadcasts on their channel.
Those who were injured, and also they addressed the leaders of some neighboring countries. The Islamic leader said that it has been very difficult to be the successor of Khomeini and Khomeini.
Yeah, this music is gonna fucking kill me. I'm tired of freaking. Just get to the fucking news without the fucking music. I don't need the music. Okay, let's move forward. Actually, let's pause it here because I want to hear what they're saying.
Blog, John Heinderacre. John, thanks for joining me. Let's start with President Donald Trump, who held a rally earlier today where he declared the United States has already won the war in Iran. Here's that moment.
We've won. Let me tell you, we've won. You know, you never like to say too early you won. We won. We won the bet. In the first hour, it was over. But oil prices are already coming back down, and it's going to come down.
And it come back up again.
Until that
And it's going to go down. It's going to go up and down.
very fast. We don't want to leave early.
The gas prices are going to stay the
We
same.
got to finish the job, right?
Trump says the United States has knocked out 58 Iranian naval ships and signaled the fight will continue for now. John,
I heard
do you think
61.
the president is right? Can we say that the U.S. has already won this war?
Well, that's probably an overstatement, but it
It's
really
just
depends on what
propaganda.
our objectives are. The primary objective is to devastate Iran's leadership and its military capabilities so that for the foreseeable future, it won't be able to threaten the United States or its own neighbors. And that objective is certainly being achieved. My own opinion is that to eliminate the threat from Iran long term, we need to do away with the radical Islamic regime. If it remains in place, it will go back to building up its military. It will continue seeking nuclear weapons. It will continue to threaten us. So to the extent that is the goal, it has not been achieved, but I hope it will be.
Yeah, I think you're right. The regime does need to change, but we haven't seen the new supreme leader. He hasn't been
Supreme
brave
Leader is
enough, I
not the
guess,
leader.
to front up, or maybe the
fucking
injuries
dead.
were more severe than the regime is letting out.
Like,
that he
like,
apparently
he's at
sustained.
Bernie's
So I
right
think we
now.
have to see him first before the United States and Israel can possibly take him out too. There are reports the FBI issued an urgent warning to police across California of a potential Iranian drone strike on that state. The Bureau said agents had intelligence that drones could be sent from an unidentified vessel off the American coastline. The FBI alert added, we have no additional information on the timing, method, target, or perpetrators of this alleged attack. John, President Trump has come out and said he's not worried about Iranian attacks on American soil, but this intelligence would suggest that there is cause for concern.
Well, there is cause for concern, but at this point, we don't have any idea whether there really are Iranian vessels somewhere on the Pacific that are preparing to send drones to California or not. It sounds far-fetched, and I doubt it, but we don't know. In my opinion, this just reinforces the fact that we should have dealt decisively with the Islamic regime in Iran a long time ago before they acquired this kind of military technology.
It makes you wonder, makes you just think, what the fuck is going on? Let's keep it moving. We got more to watch here. See if I can get this to work.
Tonight, U.S. Central Command is saying the KC-135 refueling aircraft went down in friendly airspace in western Iraq, that it was not due to hostile fire or friendly fire, and rescue efforts are ongoing. All as Iran is unleashing new attacks on oil tankers. This fuel-laden ship bursting into a fireball, part of Iran's strategy to drive up oil prices by stopping tankers from passing through the Strait of Hormuz.
They've got no Navy. They've got no Air Force. They've got no anti-air traffic, anything. They have no systems of control. We're just riding free range over that country. And now we're going to look very strongly at the Straits. The Straits are in great shape. We've knocked out all of their boats.
On Iranian state media today, a presenter reading what she said was the first message from Iran's new supreme leader, Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei,
Oh, come
who
on.
said the lever of
Bullshit.
closing the Strait of Hormuz must still be used.
Yo, you would have been better off putting the cardboard up.
And Iran isn't only lashing out at sea. New video showing a high-rise in Dubai hit by an Iranian drone, and fires raging after an Iranian strike on a fuel depot in Bahrain. It's all leaving Iran increasingly isolated. 135 nations voted at the UN to condemn Iran for its attacks on Gulf countries and Jordan. Iran today also pulled out of the upcoming World Cup in the U.S. President Trump responded,
they don't want their
the
people
team
to
is
stay here.
welcome, but, quote, I really don't believe it's appropriate that they be there for their own life and safety. 6 members of Iran's women's soccer team were recently granted asylum in Australia after players flashed help signs on the team's bus.
Wow.
Iran does have one ally that has joined it in open war, the Lebanese militia Hezbollah, firing more than 100 rockets at Israel.
And one of those Hezbollah rockets landed right here. And Israel's defense minister is now threatening the Lebanese government, saying if it can't stop Hezbollah from doing more attacks like this, Israeli troops will take more Lebanese territory.
Israel is bombing Beirut, and Israeli troops have crossed into Lebanon to battle Hezbollah. Nearly 700 people have been killed so far, according to the Lebanese government, with more than 800,000.
And you guys are not going to tell me this is not World War III?
And Richard, back to the loss of that U.S. refueling aircraft. We know there was another aircraft also involved.
Okay.
Yes, 2 aircraft involved. One of them landed safely. Now, Tom, I've been on an American fighter jet while it refueled in midair. It is a very fast, highly skilled, and inherently dangerous operation. At this stage, we don't know much. We have no information about the fate of the crew of the plane that went down or the rescue operation.
We assume they're dead.
Thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app.
They're presumed dead. If they're not back, they didn't land, they crashed. Put 2 and 2 together. The media just don't give it to you straightforward. They just beat around the bush. That's all they do. Just get to the fucking truth, and that's it. That's what the media should be. Just telling the fucking truth, not fiddle-dicking. All right, here we go. Let's continue watching some more news. Let's put up the sound on.
Common knowledge of drones comes from commercial or recreational use, like the ones we see all around town. But the founder of Digital Force Technologies really helped explain the range of drones that are out there, specifically the ones that would be used in a strike, potentially by Iran.
The FBI is warning agencies across California of Iran's potential to strike the West Coast by launching drones.
With this shit.
Fox even freaking spectrum of what's.
I thought they said it was fake
Justin
news.
McLaurin founded Digital Force Technologies in San Diego more than 2 decades ago, specializing in both drone and counter-drone technology. McLaurin explains the strike drones we're hearing about right now fall into 2 main categories.
Small, literally adapted hobby drones, fitted with a warhead, a very small warhead, and those can fly anywhere from 5 to maybe 25 kilometers. Then there's sort of the mid-size, the Shahed drone. A Shahed 136 has a wingspan of about 10 feet, and that's what's being used by Iran for larger strikes.
McLaurin says the smaller drones could take out a target like a pickup truck, while the larger drones could do much more damage.
And those are the ones that are taking out buildings, small facilities, things like that.
The FBI's bulletin noted Iran's plans to conduct this possible attack against unspecified targets in California and from an unidentified vessel off the coast. While the details have been vague, the news has put the state on high alert.
We've been working collaboratively through the SOC, which we established right after the war began, the State Operations Center, working with the Office of Emergency Service, but also working locally to make sure we transmit any information that we have received and we're aware of.
National security analysts we spoke with say the Iranian Navy's capabilities are minimal and that attempts to put drones on a vessel flying the flag of another country and crossing the Pacific would set off red flags.
The shock impact is more than the actual reality impact. There's dozens of technologies out there. We make some, other companies make them that can detect and track this. So it is a threat that can be countered. This is tried and true technology. We operate overseas with our customers every day, taking down this type of threat. So that it's done here, now it just requires a different amount of coordination.
And it is worth noting both the San Diego Mayor's Office and San Diego Sheriff's Office released statements to us tonight saying they are working with local, state, and federal partners to monitor this situation, but they are not aware of any active threats at this time. Andrew, Maria.
Wow, it's such a busy night. Just keep it moving. Benny Johnson, Rob's favorite friend. It's friend of all friends.
You ever get the sinking sense that you are sleepwalking through the end times and what we are watching play out is simply God's design and revelation? Perhaps AI is the Antichrist. And the war that we are witnessing right now raging in the Mideast, well, it was just bound to happen, and there's nothing anybody could do about it. You hate to have been part of it, but nonetheless, God's plan is going to be God's plan as you watch rockets rain down on Jerusalem, some of the holiest sites in all of Christendom and Islam and Judaism. You sort of get that sense that you can't stop what's coming. And what's coming is going to be revelation itself. And now we've seen explosions on the Temple Mount. Iranian missile lands a few hundred meters from Jerusalem's Old City Western Wall. The Dome on the Rock Mosque and the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, you can see here, if you've ever been to Jerusalem, the scaffolding that carries up to the Temple Mount that surrounds this location. Of course, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, one of the most holy places in all of Christendom, air raid sirens and evacuations as pilgrims are sheltering in place inside of this holy place. Look at this. It is what the end times looks like. Church of the Holy Sepulchre, where
creepy
antiquity holds Christ was crucified, ascended into heaven. Wild scenes. Okay, why should we care about these kind of things so much? Why does this matter? Well, the Temple Mount right here is right now a mosque. It's called the Dome on the Rock. It's a mosque that was built there after the temple was destroyed by the Romans 70 years after Christ's death. This Temple Mount, all that's left of the original Temple Mount, known as Solomon's Temple, are some really big rocks. All of the temple has been completely wiped clean, but it was a massive structure. It looked like this when it was fully built. It was the tallest building in all of antiquity. According to Jewish tradition, it housed the essence and spirit of God himself in this temple. And you can see how magisterial it is and impressive it would be even to this very day. Nonetheless, Christ preached inside of these temple courts and said that not a single stone will be left one on another. Everybody laughed at him at the time. Christ said, I am the temple. When Christ was crucified, the curtain that separated the presence of God was torn in two. And 70 years after, the destruction of the second temple happened exactly as Christ predicted it. The second temple was destroyed exactly 70 years after Christ's death. Roman forces under Titus ripped every single stone down in the siege of Jerusalem. The revolt began. The siege, Roman legions besieged Jerusalem, starting at Passover, breaching the walls after months of intense fighting, starvation, internal strife. In August, 70 years after Christ's death, a fire was set to the temple, and soldiers took the total destruction of the temple. The city was razed, the population was slaughtered or sold in slavery. The temple treasures were carried off to Rome. The loss of a central place of worship transformed Jewish life, ending sacrificial system and leading to the development of synagogues and local community worship. The loss of this, of course, is, and it continues to be, totally and completely critical to the Jewish faith. The Dome on the Rock, of course, sits there now. It's one of the world's oldest surviving Islamic architecture. Again, you can see here, this, of course, is inside of the, the heart of the modern state of Israel. This is the place that it holds. Anyway, why is any of this important? And why is it important that bombs are landing on the Temple Mount? Well, because of a prophecy of a third temple. Third temple refers to the hypothetical future rebuilt Jewish temple on the Temple Mount, same site where the first temple was built. The second temple was rebuilt, and then this would be the third temple. In mainstream Judaism, the rebuilding of the temple is considered a central part of the messianic prophecy, and ultimate redemption, it would restore the full system of sacrifices, priestly services, and divine presence and dwelling among the people. Jewish tradition draws from biblical sources. Also, in Christendom, in Christian end times prophecy, the third temple plays a significant role, linked to the passages like Daniel and Thessalonians, where the Antichrist desecrates a third temple. In Revelation, it talks about what the temple will look like, how it will be measured. Many see the construction as a prerequisite to the end of time itself, the return of Christ, the tribulation. There's been no third temple built. The Temple Mount remains under Muslim administration. So, of course, like, how could there be a Jewish temple there? Well, unless it gets blown up, which is why the bombs striking the Temple Mount are very significant. If the mosque gets blown up, will it be rebuilt? Would there be, and there is, an active political and religious forces that would push to rebuild a temple like this instead of a mosque? Well, of course there would be, and there are in Christendom and in Jewish circles. There are, of course, very conflicting opinions on how this would all come about. Nobody agrees really on anything. The concept remains deeply symbolic and hopeful in Jewish prayer and thought, mentioned in daily prayers and Christian prayers, frankly, because Christians believe it will usher in the end times and the return of Christ. But it's also highly sensitive geopolitically, because an attempt to alter the Temple Mount would trigger major conflict between Jews and Muslims, unlike anything we've ever seen. So, ladies and gentlemen, as you watch, I mean, here you can literally see from the walls of Jerusalem the Iranian regime launching missiles directly at Jerusalem, city of sacred billions to believers in the month of Ramadan, over the Western Wall, over the Dome on the Rock, and the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the most holy places in all of antiquity, right? Through to the present day. You wonder why it's always, like, everyone's always talking about Jerusalem and Israel? This is why. Because all of the three major religions of the planet have their nexus of holy spots there in that city. Video shows Iranian impact sites in Jerusalem. You can see the actual church there as the missiles rocket to the ground and explode. One hit right next to the Dome on the Rock. Where's the outrage? Again, if a missile hits the Dome on the Rock and it's from Iran, or perhaps it's a false flag, you don't know. I don't know. Here we have the Israel Foreign Ministry. The Iranian regime is firing missiles directly at Jerusalem, right at the Dome on the Rock Mosque. Protecting lives of worshipers, safety concerns. This is why prayer at holy sites has been temporarily suspended. So now they're suspending prayer at the holy sites. It's happening, man. It's happening. The Church of the Resurrection. It is the holiest site in Christianity. So it is wild that this is a site that's getting hit now. So you have, like, Christianity's holiest site, Islam's holiest site, and Judaism's holiest site, all within line, all within fire. According to tradition, the church contains both the site of Christ's, where Christ was crucified, Golgotha, and the location of Jesus' empty tomb, where he was buried and resurrected. They are immensely holy sites for Christianity. And this is what it looks like. So, yeah, I mean, like, listen, Iran launches 42nd wave of missiles with the supreme leader's first statement. Could these missiles hit and destroy the Dome on the Rock? Yeah, it's absolutely. I mean, the thing is really not that well built in the first place, and it could, it could be obliterated by that or by a false flag attack. This is really happening. Again, keep your eye on a swivel. Understand Like perhaps maybe Iran would actually target this if they were to destroy this mosque. I mean, it seems a little crazy, but like if they were to destroy this mosque, they'd be able to turn the entire Muslim world against Israel, where there's actually been some tenuous allyship there through the Abraham Accords and in this, current Iranian war. So keep an eye out for the end times. You would need to destroy this mosque in order to usher in the end times, according to Jewish and Christian tradition. The third temple being rebuilt there. Be very, very cautious, ladies and gentlemen. Know your Bible, know your scriptures, know what's up. And Sean Ryan did a recent interview with a priest talking about the third temple actually being inside of the Catholic Church. I thought it was totally fascinating, and that there won't be a third temple built here. Something critical to understand as we work through this news cycle. Again, nobody really agrees, but this is what it may actually mean. I'll end with this. Here we go.
What about the temple? According to the fathers of the church, at least the ones that I've read, they said the temple will never be rebuilt. And it will never be rebuilt. And the reason being is because, first of all, Julian the Apostate tried to rebuild it, and it was destroyed in the process. Christ actually put an end to the Jewish sacrifice on purpose, because the Jewish sacrifice in the Old Testament was a lead up or a prefigurement of Christ. And so he gave them one generation in order for them to convert to Christianity. And when they didn't, he put an end to their sacrifice. So technically speaking, there hasn't been practicing Jews in 2,000 years because the temple hasn't been around. They haven't been able to offer sacrifice. Doesn't mean that they don't pray and things of that sort, but they haven't been able to enact their primary religious duties, which is to offer sacrifice. Plus their Levitic line, which is their priestly line, was destroyed. So, but then, and the difficulty is people tend to misinterpret the book of Daniel, which says when the abomination of desolation takes its seat in the temple. What they don't realize is that is not a reference to the Jewish temple. That's where the Protestants are getting it wrong. So a lot of the Protestants are thinking, oh, well, let's help the Jews rebuild the temple, and then that will usher in, because Christ is going to return, after the temple. They think the temple is going to be rebuilt. And then as a result of that, the temple has to be rebuilt in order for the Antichrist to put himself in there. So let's do that so that the Antichrist will come, and then that means that Christ will come, and that's kind of their reasoning behind it. Well, first of all, just getting through the years of the Antichrist is going to be brutal, so I wouldn't be pushing that. But the fathers of the church are very clear that it will never be rebuilt, and that the reference to the abomination of desolation taking its seat in the temple is actually a reference to the Catholic Church. That's what the fathers say it's a reference to. That there's going to be some way in which the situation in the church will become compromised to such a degree. It doesn't mean that people have to know it, but its essential elements will still remain intact. But that the Catholic Church itself would become compromised in that process.
Well, let's keep it moving.
Well, it's raining down like fireballs. Israel saying Iran has been firing cluster munitions throughout the nearly 2-week war, adding a complicated and deadly challenge to Israel's already stretched air defenses.
NTD's Dana Monahan has more on that, plus strikes on Dubai airport and Lebanon.
The Israeli Defense Forces yesterday saying about half of the around 300 missiles Iran has launched at it during the current war carried cluster bomb warheads. Cluster bomb warheads scattered dozens of smaller bomblets, each carrying several pounds of explosives across an area of about 6 miles in radius. The weapons have killed at least 3 people in Israel recently, including 2 at a construction site in central Israel yesterday. Over 120 countries have signed an international convention banning the use of cluster bombs. And 2 Iranian drones hit near Dubai International Airport today, wounding 4 people, though flights continue. Meanwhile, Iran continues firing missiles at Israel. Most were intercepted yesterday, but 1 large warhead exploded in an open area near Beit Shemesh outside Jerusalem. No injuries were reported. Israel saying it will now allocate a special budget of tens of billions of shekels for extra defense spending to finance the air war with Iran.
We are working even harder with our heroic soldiers and pilots.
However, there is one big but here. It costs money, a lot of money.
Israel calling the budget increase an investment, not an expense. The Israeli military yesterday saying Israel has attacked more than 400 targets in Iran, hitting 4 central headquarters in Tehran and Tabriz. Satellite images revealing substantial damage to several Iranian missile and aircraft facilities across the country following a series of airstrikes. The images show significant damage to buildings and infrastructure, as well as destroyed F-14 and F-7 aircraft at an Isfahan airbase. Eyewitness footage shows damaged buildings and cars following a reported strike in Tehran. Meanwhile, Israel says it eliminated Hassan Salama, commander of the Nasser unit in the Hezbollah terrorist organization, one of the 3 units operating in southern Lebanon.
In recent days, we have identified that Hezbollah is trying to increase the firing towards northern communities and expand the range of fire to additional areas in the country. Hezbollah is taking heavy blows.
If Hezbollah just thinks of continuing to harass and threaten, it simply does not understand what awaits it, and it certainly does not understand that Israel is determined to dismantle it completely.
The Lebanese government last week declaring Hezbollah's military activities illegal and ordering the country's security forces to detain those who were behind the strikes on Israel. Airstrikes can be seen on Beirut's skyline last night as Israel stepped up its attacks on Lebanon. Israel says it was targeting Hezbollah's financial arm, Al-Qard al-Hassan, in Beirut's southern suburbs. Israel also said its ground forces launched focused raids in the south of Lebanon. And Hezbollah, meanwhile, saying it hit Israeli troops and fired rockets into northern Israel. Ominous sirens sounded periodically into the night, and incoming missiles were seen dropping from the sky over Israel early today. The Israeli defense system activated, neutralizing the threats. Meanwhile, back in Tehran, a deadly warning from the Iranian government. Iran saying state security forces were ready, with fingers on the trigger, to confront any revival of anti-government protests. Over 30,000 unarmed protesters, many of them young people, are estimated to have been slaughtered by the Iranian regime in January. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Wow, that's a big number. All right, let's keep it moving.
Mamdani, Comrade Mamdani, has himself surrounded by crazy people. His wife, who's out there liking every single October 7th social media post that she can find. I don't even want to say, like, because it's just, it's a real downer. I get it, but let's just say, like, any woman that would do that is a sick, twisted woman. Sick and twisted. And now he's got an intern who's trying to rally up people saying, how gangsta are you? I want you to join my cause. And then she cites like a bunch of prophet stuff and, her religion. For goodness sake, she wants a jihad against America because we're fighting Iran. This is who Mamdani surrounds himself with. Remember it.
Yeah, that's not good.
We don't want to get doxxed and we don't want to get suspended and we don't want to get arrested. How gangsta are you? That's just my question. How much are you willing to do it? And I know everyone has their own risk levels, but at the end of the day, that's a question to ask ourselves. How
is she allowed to be in our government?
To what extent of my personal material gains am I willing to sacrifice for this bigger noble cause? And subhanAllah, I truly believe that when your heart is in the right place, if you get suspended, if you get doxxed, because it's bound to happen when you're doing a righteous cause and when you're doing something for the sake of Allah here in the West, it will never, ever be in vain. And the true believer does not fear that, because the true believer knows that the akhirah is a promise.
Okay, wow. I'm sorry, it's a violent religion. Don't take my word for
Very
it. Dr.
violent.
Zudi Jasser, great guy. He's like a real doctor. We used to have him on my Fox show all the time. And Zudi has tried to push some kind of reform within Islam because Islam is so violent and so bad. And he's like, as a society, you just can't exist like that. As a world, we can't exist where we have this faith of Islam, which is absolutely at odds with the Judeo-Christian philosophies. So that's coming to a head. I mean, clearly in the world right now, given what is going on in Iran.
That is wild, right? But we got some more of this crazy Mamdani stuff. But let's go ahead and watch some liberal hive mind.
Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. And of course, here's the meme of the day brought to you by 5mind.com. You know, I keep hearing so many big brain foreign policy analysts, you know, all these armchair quarterbacks, these sudden experts on anything and everything Iran. They all seem to be saying the same talking points, essentially verbatim. And the latest talking point that you're going to see in order to demonize and delegitimize the president is that actually he's the bad actor. Iran is the good guy. The Iranian regime, they were engaging diplomatically. Talks were progressing. They were showing up for negotiations. And then Trump, in the middle of negotiations, just hit them hard. That, of course, signals that he's the bad guy and they're just the innocent victims defending their sovereignty against American imperialism. You know, some sort of left-wing narrative as such. But this, my friends, is such number one bullshit. It's not even funny. This implication that, you know, we were in good faith negotiations with these Islamists as if everything would have just magically worked itself out because they're such logical and rational people, very prone to compromise. This is nonsense. And it's been nothing but decades of delay tactics, decades of pretending to show up while covering up your true intentions, chasing a nuclear weapon behind the scenes, knowing that, of course, would be the ultimate trump card. All of a sudden, we can't make a move on Iran because the response could be nuclear Armageddon. But anyways, this notion, this idea I keep hearing people bring up that Iran was, quote, negotiating, well, that falls apart today as we're getting some insider information regarding the actual details of these said negotiations, these discussions with the Iranians before Operation Epic Fury was a go. And well, it appears the negotiations themselves may have actually been an important pretext factor in terms of deciding to actually launch this operation. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on here. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so I got a clip here from Steve Witkoff. He's giving us some key insights into the so-called meetings that Iran was having ahead of this conflict escalation. Take a look.
They opened up with telling us that they had the inalienable right to enrich, to which we responded that from President Trump, that we had the inalienable right to stop them from enriching. But they opened up by challenging us. Their next statement to us was that they had 460 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium. 60% enriched uranium would take a week, maybe 10 days at the outside, to bring up to 90% weapons grade. So it was a clear threat. They were boasting about having it. And they said that that was going to be something that was going to be very valuable. At the same time that they were attesting to wanting nuclear for civil purposes. There is no reason whatsoever to be enriching past 20% unless you're going for a weapon. And then finally, and this was all in the beginning meeting, they said to us, and this was some challenge, you're not going to get from us diplomatically what you could not achieve militarily. Now, yes, we had destroyed their three main enrichment and conversion centers, Natanz, Esfahan, and Fordow. That was clear. They, of course, didn't want to admit it. But think about the notion of beginning a negotiation by saying we would not be able to get diplomatically what we couldn't achieve militarily. We did achieve militarily, but they were basically saying that we didn't, and they weren't going to give it to us anyway.
So apparently, during the negotiations, and of course you can imagine the entire premise of these negotiations surrounds the concept of nuclear proliferation. Well, apparently you had Iranian representatives going to these meetings boasting about having enriched uranium to 60% during the negotiations themselves. I mean, it kind of reminds me of Maduro taunting President Trump, dancing, saying, come get me, then 24 hours later, the guy was gone. You know, it's a similar situation of stupid now, isn't it? It's absolutely friggin' idiotic. Oh, they were engaging in negotiations. Yeah, it doesn't appear as though they were doing that in good faith now, is it? Showing up to the frickin' negotiations saying, oh, we are enriching uranium at 60+%. What are you going to do, President Trump? And well, I guess they got the frickin' answer now, didn't they? Absolute decimation of your entire despot regime. You know, at some point, the breaking point comes, and it appears President Trump had decided that we had reached that point. In And all this tough talk from Iran, of course, especially ahead of the strikes. And now, well, it appears their morale is collapsing at an astonishing rate. I think they woke up and realized just how unfit they were for this fight. I guess time to transition to the next talking point, right? The first talking point is that Trump was wrong to strike them in mid-negotiation. And another talking point that we hear all the time is that this conflict is going to go on forever. Iran can sustain this for the next multiple decades if necessary. They're not feeling the pressure whatsoever. In fact, they're not even signaling any willingness for negotiations or discussion. No, they're ready to escalate this thing. This, of course, comes after President Trump suggested many times that the Iranian regime is now begging for negotiations. And CNN, of course, is perfectly willing to push this little piece of propaganda.
President Trump telling Fox News something that may have suggested he's willing to actually talk to Iranian leaders. He said, quote, "I'm hearing they want to talk badly. It's possible. Depends on what terms." This is sort of, in a sense, a classic thing for Trump to say. Out front now is Syed Hussein Mousavian. He is a former Iranian nuclear negotiator.
Why he
He
shouldn't
has
say
been
classy.
speaking to contacts inside
What a bitch.
Iran. Syed, you have been on the inside of
What a
this
classy bitch.
many, many times. What are you hearing now about the Iranian government and those in power? Do they have a desire to talk to the United States right now?
I really don't see any desire on the Iranian side to talk with the U.S. The reason is that the both military strike by the U.S. and Israel in 2025, 2026 occurred when the nuclear negotiators achieved significant progress. Diplomacy was doing well. Suddenly the US and Israel, they decided to attack Iran. Therefore, Iranians now, they believe the US has been using diplomacy as a tool to deceive Iran. And the main purpose has been war, regime change, and the total collapse of Iran. That's why they don't show any readiness as of now.
Yeah, they're referring to a former Iranian official and reporting that as a verifiable fact. And really, I find it's a familiar pattern. You know, anytime there's a development that contradicts the dominant narrative that Trump is pushing forward, suddenly you got all these anonymous officials and former officials popping up out of nowhere and just pushing foreign propaganda. We saw this during tariff talks, right? How Trump was applying so much pressure on the Chinese regime, and CNN and all these other left-wing hack networks were totally willing to push the CPC propaganda hook, line, and sinker without question. China isn't moving an inch. They're not even willing to negotiate. Meanwhile, what was the truth? They were secretly sending economic envoys to meet with Scott Bessent at the Treasury. Well, now they're pushing the same thing as if Iran isn't flinching, not even an inch. But think about that for a second. They're getting completely decimated. I mean, unlike we've ever seen before. Their leaders don't even exist. They're hiding in the frickin' mountains like little rodents in little caves. You mean to tell me they're not showing even an inch of willingness to negotiate? They don't want to get out of this situation? Give me a frickin' break. It just doesn't make sense. And then, of course, we got this post from the Iranian president, the president himself, Mr. Masoud Pezeshkian again. Well, he just wrote this. He's reaffirming Iran's commitment to peace. Talking to leaders of Russia and Pakistan, I reaffirmed Iran's commitment to peace in the region. The only way to end this war ignited by the Zionist regime in the U.S. is recognizing Iran's legitimate rights, payment of reparations, and firm international guarantees against future aggression. You know, of course, it's again this doublespeak stuff that we see from these propagandist clowns. He's trying to pretend as if he's demanding, but really what he's doing here is begging for, mercy. Please, please recognize our legitimate rights. Rights to what? Further threaten us? Further slaughter young people in your streets? How about absolutely never? And I'll suggest that America, as the leader of the free world, has the first right of refusal here, and we emphatically refuse legitimate rights. Right to what? Your illegitimate government to continue existing as a threat to the peaceful world order? And secondly, payments of reparations. Give me a frickin' break. But the last demand, I think, is the most telling. It shows how weak and pathetic they are right now. Firm international guarantees against future aggression. They're now begging for mercy. And you mean to tell me the president's speaking like this, and meanwhile there's nothing happening in the back channels, requesting to have a sit down with the Trump administration? It feels almost impossible. Honestly, at this point, I'm convinced that Trump is telling the truth. They're probably begging to negotiate, and the Trump response is likely too little too late. You had your chance. Now we're past the point of no return. The top general of the military has essentially declared it's on, and now the Iranians have to deal with the failure of their diplomacy. What else can be said? But but it gives us more insight into the dynamic. Again, we're not dealing with a legitimate government here. We're dealing with a societal death cult that frankly had this coming. And to show up at negotiations and flaunt the fact that you're enriching uranium when that is the #1 issue, to poke the bear, and in this case, not just any bear, the Trump bear. He's a 1-ton freaking grizzly bear. You're not dealing with sleepy, creepy, piss pants Joe Biden here. To poke the bear the way that they did, what can I say other than they're stupid? I mean, just stupid. To be attacking neighboring Arab nations, as they're still doing, by the way, that and everything else, they're just so freaking stupid. And in my view, they're getting what was coming to them. Anyways, that's what I got. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
I agree. I totally agree, liberal hive mind. Let's keep it moving.
This week in New York City, 2 men allegedly inspired by ISIS attempted to throw homemade bombs at a crowd of conservatives in New York City. The media lied about it constantly. We've been covering that on Power Hour this week. Mamdani as well was more than happy to call out white supremacy that he seemed to have noticed, but not the suspects that were allegedly inspired by ISIS and throwing homemade bombs. Here is Mayor of New York City, Zohran Mamdani, being asked about ISIS. Take a listen.
Given that both of the alleged attackers at Gracie said they were inspired by ISIS, and given New York City's sort of perennial status as a soft target, I was wondering if you had any, words of advice to any young people who might find themselves being drawn to that particular ideology.
I think first and foremost, just to make it clear to everyone that extremism and hatred of any kind will not be tolerated in our city. And that is regardless of whatever ideology motivates any person to commit an act of violence. There is no tolerance for it here. What we want to deliver to New Yorkers is a city that is safe, is a city that believes in the values where everyone who calls it home is considered to be a part of it. There is no tolerance for any kind of violence within that vision of our city or the way in which we lead this city.
I mean, it's just interesting listening to him there. He can't call it out directly. He just has to use vague terms of any kind.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there's no shortage of political leaders in the West who will turn a blind eye to the problem of Islamist violence. But the sort of what Mamdani's engaging in here and has been engaging in the past few days is like an inversion of reality. And I've even seen some major media outlets in the US characterize what happened as, or implied that it was actually an attack on Mamdani from the supposedly white supremacist protesters. And I think people are just so frustrated with this reflexive both sidesism. Actually, there was a very specific incident here, an attack here from one side onto another side. And it's okay to acknowledge that. And people understand that it's okay to acknowledge that. And it just reflects this, I think, this bifurcation of reality. You know, me and you, we exist in the real world and we can see what's happening. But Mamdani lives in this constructed reality where it seems like the problem is always only ever white supremacy. So, of course, his reflexive response is to say, well, no, that we don't support hatred or violence of any kind, no matter what side it. And then
going on here? Okay, just came back. It started going crazy, so I paused it for a sec. Let's continue watching.
Supremacy, he needs to call out all groups, but he refuses to. We just keep seeing that. We saw it in his tweet. We see it in his press conference.
It's the only ideology he will name.
Exactly. Absolutely right. Let's talk about more of the Democrats. A new NBC News poll has highlighted just how unpopular the Democratic Party brand has become with voters. The party posted a net favorability of -22, placing it near the bottom of the rankings. The only thing to overtake them really was the Iranian regime, which ranked lower with a net rating of -53. That says a fair bit, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, there is clearly no love for the Democrats in America. And I think that the previous story about Mamdani sort of encapsulates why that is.
Yeah.
You know, so much of the woke fixations is housed within the Democratic Party, and they've turned away mainstream Americans. And they've turned away their mainstream concerns and they're focused on these really niche issues, and they've isolated the majority of people. And it's actually what has enabled this political realignment to take place, which Trump has taken advantage of, which is happening in other countries as well. It's, the more woke Labor in the UK goes, the stronger Reform and Nigel Farage get. And it's a question, is that on the cards for Australia as well? If Albanese keeps going woke, who benefits from that?
On Australia, Matt Canavan has been elected as the leader of the National Party, securing the top job following the shock resignation of David Littleproud. Here is Matt Canavan today.
We have been blessed as a nation, absolutely blessed, kissed with blessings, with the resources we have, the land we have, the great people we have. And we don't really need to look overseas for those solutions. We have everything we need here, and we're just not exploiting it. We're not using it. We're locking it up, making it too hard for business in this country, and that leads us having to import everything.
And Matt Canavan also declared his support for income splitting as a way to create a tax system that encourages parental bonds rather than a reliance on childcare. What's your assessment here?
I think this is a great outcome for the National Party, to be honest. And how refreshing is it to hear a political leader speak plainly and honestly about the problems in our country at the moment? And also, probably the first serious politician I've ever heard give attention to the issue of family policy. Traditionally, governments really only talk about family policy in the context of how many subsidies it can give to the childcare sector. And what and Mr. Canavan is actually talking, well, actually, what do families want? And a lot of families want to be able to look after their own children, but they're actually denied that choice because of the economic factors, which are, on the one hand, deterring family foundation in the first place. And then for those that do form families, are pretty much coerced or forced to be a two-income household. And they have to use the childcare system. And a lot of families actually don't want that.
Yeah.
And so to hear a political party leader today actually talk about that and give it the attention it deserves, I think it's a massive boon for the Nationals.
Completely agree with you. We've also heard from former Prime Minister John Howard speaking about Matt Canavan. Let's take a listen.
He's got views and he's not afraid to express them. And he argues his case very well. And the greatest craft that a successful politician can have is to be a persuasive presenter. And he does that.
John Howard, of course, this week, Sky News political contributor Chris Uhlmann reflected on the legacy of John Howard's being Australia's second longest serving Prime Minister in a documentary. And I think many Australians just really miss the stability of the Howard era.
Yes, absolutely right. One of the things I remember from the Howard era most is just the cultural self-confidence we had as a country. All of the markers of national identity were never more secure than they were under the Howard era. And one of his most interesting speeches, I think before he became Prime Minister, was his ambition for Australia was to be comfortable and relaxed about its culture and its place in the world and its way of life. And that is probably one of his great achievements, is that he actually accomplished that. People loved being a part of Australia and they weren't ashamed of it anymore. And to have married that legacy also with economic confidence as well, and fiscal restraint. One of the tragedies now is that he left the country with a bipartisan consensus on the idea of fiscal constraint, and that has been lost. And we should all be very sad, but we should always look back on the lessons of the Howard era because he has so much to teach.
Morgan Begg, Director of Research at the Institute of Public Affairs. Thank you so much for your time. Always great to speak with you. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, let's keep it moving. We're going to stick with the Australians for a little bit more.
Well, gee, let's talk about CNN. They are having an absolute shocker of a week. Now, you might remember last night we spoke about the ISIS-inspired terror attack that occurred in New York City a couple of days ago, where two teenagers threw bombs into a crowd, and it happened near the residence of New York Mayor Zoran Mamdani. Well, CNN anchor Abby Phillip. She's one of their prominent hosts there. She is a long-term critic of Donald Trump. In fact, I would say that she's also a long-term chronic and acute sufferer of Trump derangement syndrome. Well, that was on full display last night when she said on her program, and she said that the ISIS-inspired attack was actually against Mamdani, that he was the actual target of this attack, when in actual fact, it was at an anti-Islam rally. And as we said, this was an ISIS-inspired attack that was designed to create mass casualties. Thankfully, there were none, but that was designed to create mass casualties against ordinary Americans. Here's what she said on the show.
Two Republicans say Muslims don't belong here after an attempted terror attack against New York's Mayor Zoran Mamdani, and the House Speaker Mike Johnson says nothing really to condemn those comments.
No, Abby. That was all wrong. That was all wrong, wasn't it? As we said, it was not designed to target Zoran Mamdani. Well, after mass public backlash, she was forced to apologise. Now, she put out this post on social media saying, I want to correct something I said last night. The bombs thrown in New York City over the weekend by ISIS-inspired attackers was thrown into a crowd of anti-Muslim protesters and not specifically targeted at Mayor Mamdani. That wording was inaccurate and I didn't catch it ahead of time. I apologise for the error. And then also underneath that, there was a added context, which is what X does when there needs to be more context on the post. It says the use of the word specifically implies Mamdani may have been a target when this is factually incorrect based on every report and testimony from the two terrorists themselves. Bombs were thrown at protesters and police in order to injure, murder as many civilians as possible. I mean, that is a very, very big distinction. But this comes just days after that dreadful CNN post in the way in which they actually described this terror attack. They said two Pennsylvania teenagers crossed onto the New York City on Saturday morning for what could have been a normal day, enjoying the city during abnormally warm weather. The heck's the weather got to do with it? And then it went to say, but in less than an hour, their lives would drastically change as the pair would be arrested for throwing homemade bombs. Now, let me say this to you. Abby would have known, absolutely, there's no doubt in my mind she would have known what that script read, okay? Because when you are a news reader, you do know what comes up in your rundown. Now, not often you may not be able to read it in advance, but she would have known. She would have known the context around this, and yet that was what she decided to put to air. I mean, she could have had a moment there where she went, actually, no, I'm going to correct myself, but she chose not to do it. But what this just proves once again is the hypocrisy of the liberal media, because this is the exact same organisation that hid Joe Biden's illness for many years while he was mumbling, stumbling and fumbling. It is a mouthpiece for the Democrats. And so anything that's got to do with what the left perceive as, that's racist, we can't talk about that. Anything to do with radical Islam, they don't want to touch, they don't like to touch that. They just avoid altogether. But she deserves to be sacked over that, in my view.
Well, even the apology was an absolute shocker. She says that wording was inaccurate. The wording wasn't simply inaccurate. The wording was the opposite of what happened. It wasn't just a little inaccuracy here or there that, quote unquote, I didn't catch ahead of time. CNN are just lying. They're just bald-faced liars and tell their viewers the exact opposite of the facts. I'm not sure why anyone would watch it. And, well, their ratings certainly reflect that over the past few years.
Never let the truth get in the way of a good story, right? And
what's that old expression? Is it true, or did you hear it on CNN?
On CNN.
Yeah, true.
And it's she's not even a newsreader either. She hosts a panel program. So she would know the topics.
And that panel is very far left.
I mean, I read my scripts before. I mean, this show is unscripted, but on other programs, I read and mostly write my own scripts before I go on here. Maybe it's CNN, they have the budget to get other people to write it for them. But you should be reading it before you go on air. So there's no way that she wasn't aware of what.
Or you would have a producer who would say to you, "Hey, that's
actually,
you better correct that."
Correct. There are many places in which this has gone wrong. So you have to ask the
You're
question:
just trying
has
to
it
cover her
deliberately
ass,
gone
that's
wrong?
all.
Because they want to portray a certain view of what happened outside the mayor's residence.
They just want to cover her ass because they don't want to fire the black girl. They don't want to fire the black girl. Watch, it'll be racist. Trust me. They'll go with the black card. They always do.
Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. And of course, here's the meme of the day brought to you by 5mind.com. You know, if you ever needed to know where the modern left was headed, then look no further than Mamdani. You know, there's certain moments in politics where someone's behavior, I think, tells you everything that you need to know about the ideology that they represent. You don't need to read their campaign platform. You don't need to listen to the speech or the campaign slogans. No, just observe the actual behaviors, observe the track record, and it tells you all that you need to know. And that's exactly what happened here with Zoran Mamdani. His response to this New York City terror attack has got to be one of the most atrocious things I have ever seen. But you know what's even more atrocious? It's not the expected Islamic extremism apologist, kind of behavior from Zoran Mamdani. It's not the diversion tactics that we would expect from him. No, what's worse is the leftist media essentially jumping in and playing the same twisted games. Folks, I got some clips to really put everything into perspective. Some clips that I think perfectly encapsulate and capture just how backwards the modern left has become. And of course, the overarching phenomenon known as chickens for KFC, the left-wing response to this Islamist terror attack in New York City is everything wrong with modern leftist thinking. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks. So of course, it all started with Zoran Mamdani's initial response to that terror attack. Yeah, what did he do? He didn't condemn radical Islam. He didn't point the finger at the giant elephant in the room. That is the incompatibility of Islam in the Western world. No, of course, why would he ever do that? He's part of the problem. No, instead, he tried to divert the blame to, quote, white supremacy.
This was a vile protest rooted in white supremacy entitled Stop the Islamic Takeover of New York City. I'm the first Muslim mayor of our city. Anti-Muslim bigotry is nothing new to me, nor is it anything new for the 1 million or so Muslim New Yorkers who know this city as our home.
Now that, of course, was bad enough, but then, as we know with these leftoid individuals, they love adding insult to injury, right? And that's exactly what Zoran Mamdani did. Following his atrocious remarks, he then doubles down by snubbing the heroic NYPD officers who put themselves in harm's way, lunged over the barricades, arresting those terrorist individuals. No credit goes to them. He doesn't even mention them. Instead, he hosts a dinner with Mahmoud Khalil, the leader of a foreign Islamist influence group, whose stated mission is to, quote, end Western civilization.
They say Mayor Zoran Mamdani should have had that chief over for dinner, not anti-Israel activist Mahmoud Khalil, who came over to the governor's or the mayor's mansion for a Ramadan dinner the other night. Khalil, for people watching, wondering who that is, he's the Columbia grad we used to see on protest duty all the time. He's fighting a federal deportation case after the White House says he supported Hamas during those protests, which he denies.
The men and women of the NYPD will do the right thing. They're going to enforce the laws. They're going to show up for work. But they understand that this man on the screen right now does not have their back.
I mean, the contrast is absolutely staggering. You have police officers who risk their lives to stop a terror attack, and the political leader can't even bring himself to acknowledge their existence. No, instead he's busy hosting another terrorist for dinner. This, my friends, is what people mean when they say that the left has frickin' lost the plot. We're looking at terror cells being activated across the nation. We've seen multiple terror attacks in the span of a couple of weeks. The issue, by the way, the elephant in the room, is radical Islam, which frankly should be a natural enemy of the left, especially considering all the social repression. This is an ideology that is antithetical to everything that the left believes in. But instead, what do we get? Oh, just deflection and defense from the media. We got CNN trying to flip the whole script, pretending as if Mamdani was the potential victim here.
2 Republicans say Muslims don't belong here after an attempted terror attack against New York's Mayor Zoran Mamdani, and the House Speaker Mike Johnson says nothing really to condemn those comments.
Supposedly, some of these comments are as a result of the attempt against Mayor Mamdani, who was raised Muslim, was he not himself? Yeah. So they're being anti-Muslim and they're finally defending Mamdani over something.
To be clear, the attack wasn't on Mayor Mamdani. It was on people protesting. It was attacking protesters, people protesting Mamdani.
Right by his house.
It wasn't to frame it as an anti-Muslim attack would actually completely reverse what happened. Someone who shouted Allah Akbar through
I'm saying that they're
a bomb that didn't go off at the protesters.
Republicans are finally doing something.
It's hard to wrap my head around. They tried twisting this on MAGA, literally, unironically. They tried turning Zoran Mamdani into the victim. And that really seems to be the issue with left-wing thinking, right? Somehow, according to their thinking, if it fits their leftist ideology, they can always manage to twist and contort the situation to turn the victim into the perpetrator. Just like we saw in this situation. first a bomb was thrown at Jake Lang and his friends, and it was kind of justified, according to these leftist idiots, because Jake Lang is a controversial figure. Then when that didn't work, they tried lying and claiming that Mamdani was the real victim here. And of course, now as the conversation surrounding Islam is coming back to the forefront, the victim, of course, is all the peaceful Muslims. The same Islamophobia angle that we saw post 9/11.
So I can't speak for Mike Johnson, but I would say we've had 2 terrorist attacks here in the last 10 days.
What does that have to do with Muslims?
So can we condemn those? Why are we?
Of course. What does that have to do with Muslims?
What does that have to do with Muslims?
So we saw 2 terrorist attacks in New York City in the last 10 days, 2 Islamist terrorist attacks. And Abby Phillips' follow-up is, well, what does that have to do with the Muslims? Are you serious? It has everything to do with Muslims and Islam. Again, it's freaking chickens for KFC. These people go to bat for an ideology that, if in power, would destroy them. Abby Phillips would be forced to wear a burqa and push state propaganda if the Islamists ever had their way. Yet here she is, running defense for a totally destructive antagonistic force. Always with this naive talking point. But most Muslims are peaceful. You know, we've heard the line a million times, I get it. Of course, the vast majority of people in any religious group are not extremists, but that's not the point here. The issue that we want to discuss is that radicalization is a serious issue with this particular religion. And the argument seems to be, well, just turn a blind eye to it. A terror attack. It is what it is, I guess. It is what it is. But I simply cannot accept this standard. You know, I get crime and violence is going to exist in any society, but if you had the ability to identify a particular group where that stuff was coming from and then do something about it so you can, avoid the violence that follows, would you not tackle that issue? Would you not make appropriate policy decisions to shield your society from that clear identifiable threat? Of course you would. Oh, it's just a few terror attacks. We should have 0 Islamist terror attacks. None. They just want to turn a blind eye to clear danger, and I will not stand for it. I mean, what are we defending here? Opening the border to potential terror cells and terror networks from abroad? Enough turning a blind eye to clearly preventable violence. Oh, it's just a terror attack. It doesn't mean that we should reject Islam. And it's not just terror attacks. Look at what they've turned a blind eye to in Europe, and actually speaking to that, speaking of the warning signs, here's an interesting story. And really, I think this is a major warning sign because this is Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, who's basically just like Mamdani, the same kind of character. Well, look at this report. Apparently, Sadiq Khan personally read reports detailing young girls being gang RAPED'd in hotels by groups of Muslim men who plied them with drugs, threatened them, and abused them. And yet, on at least 10 public occasions, Mayor Sadiq Khan denied that grooming gangs even existed in London. Kind of reminds me of Governor Tim Walz seeing all that Somali fraud, but he vehemently denied that it existed for years until the whole thing freaking blew up in his face. Well, it's interesting, right? Turning a blind eye to clear threats. And the threat is clear, by the way. Look at the demographics when it comes to sexual offenses. Look at the bar at the bottom showing UK native-born citizens and then North African and Middle Eastern migrants. We are importing terrorism and violence against our young women. And we've spoken about this before, this radical Islamic belief that they are in their religious right to abuse non-believer women, non-Islamic women, essentially are open targets because they're kuffar. So I guess to answer your question, Abby Phillips, this has everything to do with Islam. That is the problem. That's the common denominator here. And you keep trying to distract from it because you're so woke and virtuous. You keep running defense for people like Zoran Mamdani. And now we live in a world where Zoran Mamdani, after a terror attack in the biggest city in America, he snubs the heroic cops who dashed on the front line and dines with a subversive Islamist character. And CNN plays defense and distract. We are not bigots, folks. No matter how many times they repeat it, we are not bigots. We're simply objective observers. We see the ideology and we want nothing to do with it. That is not racism. That's self-preservation. It's the most rational position that I can think of. The threat is staring them in the face and they ignore it, they run cover for it, and wave it in. This is the modern left. They're almost more dangerous than the terrorists that they defend. They're the freaking enablers with their idle empathy. Anyways, that's what I got. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
All right, let's keep it moving.
Corporate press does it again. I reported on a story yesterday that was first broken by ABC, one of the wokest of the woke networks out there, about the FBI warning police departments in California about a potential threat from Iran who plan to attack attack the U.S. coastline, specifically targeting California. And God knows how many residents, including my wife, were actually petrified at the thought of this, because, yes, they are insane enough to do something that vile, that ghoulish, that disgusting, and that insane. Well, guess what? Caroline Leavitt was furious today, posting this on X, saying this post and story should be immediately retracted by ABC News for providing false information to intentionally alarm the American people. She said that this was a phony story, that, quote, there has never been a credible threat against the American homeland from Iran. Of course, Newscomb called this a, quote, critical threat. He said, quote, drone issues have been top of mind. We've been aware of that information. We've been working collaboratively with the State Operations Center. That means, folks, that just this week, we had woke CNN do a complete fabrication on the story of the NYC terrorists who threw a makeshift bomb into a peaceful protest near Mamdani's mansion. You have Abby Phillips, CNN host, saying that it was directed at Mamdani, and then having to go and do a retraction and saying, I apologize, which we know she don't mean that. Anna Navarro, who's a complete walking catastrophe, also made the same claim, but no apology from her yet. And then earlier today, CNN's Caitlin Collins gets completely reamed and lambasted by Senator John Fetterman for their continued negative coverage of the false debunked story of the kindergarten elementary school in Iran being hit by a Tomahawk missile, which has now been debunked. It was not a Tomahawk missile. It was one of the IRGC's missiles. Fetterman, who's like one of the only Democrats who actually supports saving all of these millions of Iranians, over 83% of them want this terrorizing regime gone, which has facilitated, nurtured, and supported terrorists for 50 years, to actually go on CNN and school them and say, what's wrong with you people? Where were you? You're all this outrage about this school, which has been debunked. Where were you when the tens of thousands, I'm hearing some reports, it's over 50,000 innocent Iranians were massacred? Where are the feminists? Where is Michelle Rapinoe? Where are the soccer players? These poor Iranian, brave, real. You want to know what real rebellion looks like? What real courage looks like? These Iranian soccer team women who defied the Islamic Republic regime and now facing persecution. Where are they? Where are the Democrats? Where are the liberals? Where are the feminists? Where's the Rapinoes? Nowhere. That's where. So this story, getting back to what Caroline Leavitt called a blatant lie and false information, just think about the magnitude of this. The mainstream media is so set on undermining America, undermining this administration, that they're willing to absolutely amplify a false story, create, you want to talk about fear-mongering and demagoguery, create unbridled fear in the streets of California, and not just in Southern California, Northern California, Central, the entire state, spreading vile, false, propagandized terror. Let that sink in, America. I almost forgot to mention this. CNN just aired over 4 minutes of Islamic Republic state media.
Oh, we just covered
uninterrupted,
that too.
4 minutes straight of Islamic state media complaining about America, complaining about Trump, complaining about the attacks, but not one mention about everything I talked about before: the massacre, the soccer, courageous soccer team, women who are fighting for their rights to live, for their rights of their people. Not one mention. And now have a brand new live breaking news: a terrorist attack at a synagogue in Michigan, one in Virginia by both who are Muslim. And now this gives me the perfect segue to this right here. And what you see right here are people kneeling in Islamic prayer. And this is not in some random home somewhere in the Middle East or Far East. This is right here in the United States of America at New York City Mayor Mamdani's residence. Check this out.
What the hell? We'll make some of that.
I'm actually surprised he has the American flag there.
Growing up with being taught that
And this guy right here, that index finger that he's pointing at right there, you know what that is? That's the same exact index finger that was used by the New York NYC ISIS sympathizing teenager. Remember that CNN called them teenagers on a warm afternoon, which is absolute bat beep crazy. It's the
Yeah, because they're not teenagers. They're 19,
one finger ISIS
or
salute,
18, 19?
just days after one of the radical Islam Muslims attempted to carry out an attack against conservatives in NYC. That same finger. And you can see them laughing because they know what kind of impression it will make. Watch them laugh. Same exact finger. Can you imagine Americans on 9/12, the
we're
day
paying
after
for that, you know that,
9/11,
right?
2001,
That comes out of taxpayers' money.
being told that in 2026, this is who would run New York, and this is the kind of activity, somebody doing a one-finger ISIS salute. That's the kind of activity that would be nurtured, facilitated, and supported inside the world's largest metropolitan, the United States of America's greatest city, New York City, capital mayor's office. Can you even fathom that happening? We were supposed to never forget. It looks like New York forgot. And the liberals and Democrats like Schumer and the whole lot of them, AOC and mentally Ilhan Omar, they love these guys. They love that this is happening. They love that we have enemies within literally conquering our nation without firing a single bullet. Remember this guy right here? This guy, the Maryland man that Van Hollow spent taxpayer money traveling to have margaritas with to try to get him back after he was deported for doing all sorts of absolute repulsive criminal things, including trafficking and smuggling. Well, guess what? Mamdani, not only did he have Islamic prayer and a complete Islamic pageant at the mayor's office, he had Khalil, this guy, at his home. Oh, and by the way, his wife, I'm not sure if you heard this or not, his wife, who's in the picture as well, sitting above Khalil, his wife actually was caught red-handed liking on social media innumerable posts that celebrated October 7th and derided Israel in multiple capacities. If this isn't a direct slap in the face to all Americans, especially the Americans who suffered,
They cheated to get in
and sacrificed their lives for what happened on 9/11. Mamdani defended his hosting of Mahmoud Khalil at the Gracie Mansion,
I guarantee you,
saying he was
a lot
simply
of people, the
standing
same
up
person
for
voted more
First
than once.
Amendment rights. He says, as the mayor of New York City, I believe it is my responsibility to fight for the safety for the rights of each and every New Yorker. The only charge that was levied against him was the exercising of his First Amendment rights, which is complete BS. The guy is he cheated on his wife, he trafficked drugs, and God knows what else. Deported by ICE and fought. Deported by ICE and fought tooth and nail for by Democrats. So let's just kind of recap for a second here. This is what radical Islamic jihadist extreme followers have been up to and have done in these United States in the last week. One, shoots up a bar in Austin, Texas, kills 2, shoots 14. 2, another one lights a Molotov cocktail and throws it at Christians in New York City. 3, another one throws a nail bomb or shrapnel IED at Christians in New York City. 4, another one tries to bomb a Southwest flight. Maybe you didn't hear about this. Going from Nashville to Fort Lauderdale. Another one throws IED shouting Allahu Akbar at a protest near Gracie Mansion in New York City. Another one makes a bomb threat and forces a plane to land in Atlanta. Another one drops a bomb threat at Kansas City Airport. And the DHS is reporting that jihadi threats against churches across the U.S. right now are completely exploding. Jewish synagogue and pre-K attacked in Michigan, and Norfolk, Virginia campus attacked just recently. This just happened today. For some reason, radical Islam is the one religion that the left will fight for until their dying breath. And for whatever reason, Christianity is somehow always the problem. This is how it starts, folks. This is how it starts. I did an entire presentation on what life was like, not only in the Middle East, but in the entire world, including the United States, pre-1979, when this insidious, sick ghoul you see at the top of your screen, Khomeini, and his Islamic regime forced the Shah out in 1979, much to the help of one of the worst presidents of all time, Jimmy Carter, and after 1979. This is how it starts, folks. Khomeini in Paris, 1978. Mamdani in NYC, 2026. I just have one question for anybody watching. Can you name me one thing? Name me one thing Islam has done that has benefited Western civilization.
Shit.
Name me one thing. Leave it in the comments down below.
What have they done?
I can't wait to hear from you. Let me know what you think of everything that I've shared with you today. Tap that thumbs up if you love
really
America. Make sure you check out.
We got. Listen, the world is a wild place. Let's go ahead and go start watching some Tyson De La Cruz.
We do COVID tests, then we pay ours. Sometimes I give liquor. I'm giving liquor and money out today.
America, you just watched somebody on a San Francisco street corner offer cash and liquor to get people to hand over their medical insurance cards. He says, I'm giving out liquor and money today. And here's what makes this absolutely perfect. This isn't some isolated scam here. This is a systematic fraud operation targeting California's Medicaid system. And a content creator by the name of JJ Smith is exposing everything that California don't want you to see.
Yes, I was shocked. I was shocked each time I saw this. I've been seeing things like this multiple times. And I was always curious what the lines be for. But some people brought it to my attention that it's not they're not doing what they say they're doing. So
while these scammers are collecting insurance information on street corners for $5 in free booze, Gavin Newsom's wife is paying herself $300,000 a year for her nonprofit that pushes gender ideology in schools. And Newsom himself wants to spend $19 million on advertising to tell you how great California is. This is corruption from the street corner to the governor's mansion.
They get $25 to sign a petition.
They get $25?
$5.
$5. Okay. You have to have your ID?
I'm not sure.
What is up, guys? Tyson De La Cruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. Let me walk you through exactly how this fraud operation works, because JJ Smith, shout out to JJ Smith, by the way. If you're not following him, check him out on X at JJ Smith. He didn't just stumble onto this scam. He's been documenting the entire ecosystem from the street level fraud here that's bleeding California's Medicaid system absolutely dry. And the genius part about this is that they're hiding in plain sight because it's California, obviously, and California leadership doesn't want you to see it.
What is this for?
Check your blood pressure, check your heart rate. You get $15 just as long as you have.
Wait a minute, I can't hear you.
Check your blood pressure, check your heart rate. Just as long as you have active Medicare, you get $15.
Watch this exchange carefully here. Check your blood pressure, check your heart rate, you get $15. But here's the catch. Just as long as you have active Medi-Cal. They don't care about your blood pressure. They don't care about your heart rate. They care about your Medicaid information.
But where does my information go?
It goes to our clinic.
What clinic? You didn't tell me the other day. I never spoke to you. I never spoke to you. So if I take this, I get $15, right? Where does my information go though?
The CNB clinic.
CNB? CME. Oh, okay.
Where does the information go? He scrambles. He doesn't know what to say. CNB clinic. That's what they say. CME. CME.
The CNB clinic.
CNB? CME. Oh, okay.
Whatever. It's a fake clinic down the street on the corner, whatever it is. Because by the time anybody investigates CMB, CBA, CNA, whatever clinic this is called, they changed the name into something else and moved on to a different street corner.
And then they bill my medical provider.
Your medical provider is Medi-Cal.
What happens if I don't have Medicare, if I got private insurance?
Well,
That's the thing. That's what it's paying. That's what the sales is paying this for.
Translation: California taxpayers are paying, they're funding these street corner blood pressure checks that nobody asked for, that nobody needs, and that probably doesn't even happen after you walk away. They get your insurance information, and that's all that they need. Now, guys, let me show you where this gets kind of dark, because the blood pressure scam is just simple amateur hour compared to the C-19 testing operation that happened during the pandemic. Watch this exchange and tell me California doesn't have a fraud problem here.
So what do y'all do?
We do COVID testing. We pay sometimes I give liquor. I'm giving liquor and money out today.
For what?
If you take the test.
And what do I need to take the test with?
Medical and ID.
And what do y'all do with my information?
We just submit your COVID test to the lab and we tell you if you're okay or not.
We're saying it's to go farther than that.
But what does the lab do with my information?
So let me tell you this real quick.
All right, let's break down this masterpiece here. We do cover tests, then we pay off. Sometimes I give liquor, I'm giving liquor and money out today. What? So they're offering liquor and cash to have people take tests. Now watch what happens when the creator, JJ, asks what they actually need. He says, Medi-Cali and an ID, your insurance card and your ID, because they can't bill Medicaid without verifying you in the system here.
Because y'all ask the same questions, right?
Because if I'm giving you my personal information, I want to know where it's going.
I get where you're coming from. I didn't heard y'all before, but I'm gonna tell you this.
But here's where our guy gets a little defensive. If I wanted to do something, I need a little bit more information, he says. I need your ID and your social security number. This is what he says.
If I wanted to do some shit, I need more. I need your ID one, but I need your social. If I ask you for your ID and your social, I'm doing something with it.
What company? If I ask for your ID and your social, I'm doing something with it. Okay. Oh, okay. So you're saying I'm only committing a little bit of fraud because you're not asking for my social security number, just insurance cards and IDs. And so you're not the quote unquote real criminal. That's the defense here, guys. I'm not asking for enough information to completely destroy your life and to completely commit fraud, just enough to steal a little bit. And then this situation gets absolutely poetic. He goes,
your ID and your fucking Medi-Cal card, I can't do with that.
Then why do I have to give it to you to take the test?
So that your medical insurance pays for the test. That's how I get paid. Let's talk about it.
Okay. They bill my medical insurance.
Right. They're not billing it, but that's how we get paid through the lab.
Okay.
What lab? If I wanted to take you up top, I can't do your health insurance card.
Now I'm a bottom person. You can't take me on top.
I'm not talking about.
I'm a bottom person. You can't take me up top.
I'm a bottom person. You can't take me on top.
What? We're talking about medical fraud here, and it was switched up to sexual preferences and positions. JJ Smith is out here trying to expose Medicaid fraud, and now it's a whole different confession. I'm a bottom person, he says. But notice how quickly he pivoted back, and I'm not talking about that. He says, yeah, buddy, we know. You made that clear. He says, the Golden Star Lab is the clinic name, by the way. I'm sure Golden Star is a truly and totally legitimate lab company, and it's not all connected with the 12 other clinics running the same scam on different corners in San Francisco. I'm sure of that. Now, let me show you why JJ Smith's investigation is particularly damning, because this isn't just about one content creator finding one scam. It is about California's government deliberately ignoring systematic fraud that's costing taxpayers millions and millions of dollars.
Actually, they're preying on the people with drug addiction because they're giving those people the $5 to go get them some drugs. Them to find something fraudulent.
I'm sorry, the last part cut out with the audio. Sorry, but I lost you at drugs.
They're giving these people $5 to go support their drug habit just to find something fraudulent.
That's the business model. Find people desperate for drug money, offer them $5 to $15 to buy some liquor or a couple hits, get their insurance information, bill Medicaid for services that were never actually rendered. The addict continuously gets high and the scammers get paid, and California taxpayers fund the entire operation.
It's going to be a never-ending cycle because people are going to do whatever they can do to get the money to support their drug habit.
That's true.
Do you ever see law enforcement or anybody step in?
No.
Do you ever see law enforcement step in? JJ says no, because law enforcement doesn't know it's an actual crime. Let that sink in for a minute. San Francisco police are walking past these operations, I'm sure, every single day, and they don't realize that it's even fraud. Why? Because A, it's California, and California has normalized street-level scams to the point that paying people for insurance information just looks like another Tuesday. Now, let me show you what Governor Gavin Newsom has been doing while his state hemorrhages money through the Medicaid fraud. Spoiler alert, you guys, he's spending hundreds and hundreds of $1 million on programs that don't work while ignoring the fraud that actually costs money.
That he's going to put another $291 million into the care courts. This was another one of these ideas that we're going to solve homelessness just before an election so that it looks like we're doing something. Then on the other side of the election, when it doesn't work, it's somebody else's problem. Well, Care Courts was one of those programs. I think it started in 2022. And the idea was that people could petition the courts for a care program for someone who was mentally ill or in substance abuse situations. And then the court could order treatment. But the whole thing is voluntary.
$291 million for Care Court, supposed to help 12,000 people. Actual number who completed the program? Guess, guys. 19, not 19,000, not 1,900, 19. That's over $15 million a person who finished the program. While JJ is finding Medicaid fraud on every single street corner, presumably in San Francisco, with just a phone camera, and Newsom's government can't be bothered to investigate anything, be sure they'll throw another $291 million at Care Court. I'm sure of it, guys. I am absolutely sure of it, guys, that graduate number 20 is just around the corner.
Why is compulsion reserved only for the taxpayers? Why is compulsion reserved only for the businesses that have to endure having homeless encampments on the sidewalk in front of their business? Why is the compulsion reserved only for the people who park at the meter and not the people who camp next to the meter? What is the situation here? This can't continue.
Exactly. California will force you to pay taxes to fund these failed programs. They'll force businesses to deal with homeless encampments, block their doors, but they won't force criminals to stop scamming Medicaid. But they won't force street corner fraudsters to actually face some consequences. Now let's talk about who's really profiting from California's corruption. Because while Medicaid scammers are collecting $15 a victim, Jennifer Newsom is pulling in $300,000 a year from her nonprofit while pushing gender ideology into schools. Make it more trans.
She reportedly paid herself a massive paycheck while pushing controversial sexuality and gender education in California's school system. The New York Post is reporting Siebel Newsom leaned on her powerful husband and his education board to push preachy flicks about toxic masculinity into classrooms, all while raking in up to $300,000 every single year.
It is called the Representation Project, while forcing California schools to show her films about toxic masculinity and gender ideology. And get this, Newsom's Board of Education recommends her films. Of course they do. Shortly after he became governor.
That guidance was later adopted by the state education department and sparked some heated debate for its focus on sexuality and gender identity. Teaching manuals pushed by Newsom's Representation Project include materials like this. Look at your screen.
They're using a gingerbread person to teach middle schoolers about pansexuality. Gingerbread person diagram. And the best part about all this, while Jennifer Newsom is collecting $300,000 to produce this content, 44% of California 11th graders don't even meet reading requirement standards. 70% are below par in math. But sure, Jennifer Newsom, take your $300,000 salary. I'm sure teaching kids about a gingerbread person. A gingerbread person is more important than teaching them how to read. And just when you think California's corruption couldn't get any more blatant, let me show you what Gavin Newsom wants to do while his state is currently facing a multi-billion-dollar deficit.
Governor Gavin Newsom wants to use $19 million to promote California in a better light
nationally. According to a state request for proposal, also known as RFP, it opened last month. The ad campaign is meant to promote how the state is, quote, an economic powerhouse and unmatched tourism destination and the world's epicenter of innovation.
$19 million for
See that?
advertising campaigns to promote California in a better light. Guys, that is it. Just promote California in a better light and people will see it differently. You know what will promote California in a better light? Stop Medicaid fraud. Clean up homelessness.
And
Fix
clean up the
schools.
voters'
Not
roll.
letting your wife pay herself $300,000 from a nonprofit. Maybe.
The highest poverty rate, tied with Louisiana, the highest unemployment, and as Nick Kristof of the New York Times recently wrote, Mississippi schools outperform California schools, especially for poor kids. Now, people see that or hear that or read that, and they're like, no thanks, California. No thanks, Gavin Newsom. We're good.
All those things have truth. All of them are substantive arguments. And there's plenty of counter arguments, including the fact we're the fourth largest economy in the world because our economic policies are working and our economic output is second to none in the United States.
Katie Couric, you guys remember her, just handed out receipts. Highest poverty rate, highest unemployment, schools worse than Mississippi. And his response, we're the fourth largest economy in the world. Cool, Gavin, your economy is doing great while your citizens are living in poverty and your Medicaid system is being looted by street corner scammers offering liquor and money. That's your legacy, my man. America, JJ Smith, a content creator with a camera phone, just exposed more Medicaid fraud in San Francisco than California's entire government found in years. Street corner scammers offering $5 to $15 plus free liquor to collect insurance cards. Fake clinic billing Medicaid for services obviously never rendered. Drug addicts being exploited for their insurance information. Meanwhile, Governor Gavin Newsom's pouring $290 million into homeless programs that help 19 people. His wife, Jennifer, is paying herself $300,000 a year from her nonprofit to push gender ideology while California students can't read. And Newsom himself wants $19 million to advocate how great California is while facing a massive deficit. Here's your truth. California doesn't have a fraud problem it can't fix. It has a corruption problem that it won't solve because the fraud goes all the way to the top. The street corner scammers are just doing what they learned from the governor's mansion, exploiting the system, take the money, and dare anybody to stop them. Let me know what you think about this. Drop it down in the comments section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you. I think that was for a great upload. And I have a couple of add-ons that just popped up, and I think it's worth us watching. So got a couple of add-ons, and then we are going to finish the show with Tyson De La Cruz, hopefully, if there's no last minute add-ons, because there have been some add-ons. So then I think it's appropriate for us to watch. So let me just set them up. Just going to take me a minute. And then we're just going to watch this together. Hope everyone's having a good night. I hope you're safe where you're at. It's a crazy world we're living in. That's for damn sure. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's watch this.
And West, while we continue to keep a close eye on the energy markets as the war in the Middle East unfolds. Breaking coming into the newsroom in the past hour or so, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent saying this on social media. The president is taking decisive steps to promote stability in global energy markets and working to keep prices low as we address the threat and instability posed by the terrorist Iranian regime. He continues, to increase the global reach of existing supply, the Treasury Department is providing a temporary authorization to permit countries to purchase Russian oil currently stranded at sea.
What?
This narrowly tailored short applies only to oil already in transit.
Russian
It will not provide significant
oil.
financial benefit to the Russian government, which derives the majority of its energy revenue from taxes assessed at the point of extraction. President Trump's oil energy policies have driven U.S. oil and gas production to record levels,
That's
contributing to lower fuel prices for hardworking Americans. The temporary increase in oil prices is a short-term and temporary disruption that will result in a massive benefit to our nation and economy in the long term. So, this just coming down, and we'll wait to see what more we learn about this plan from the White House. The White House, of course, is under pressure to calm the markets, the energy markets, but the tools at its disposal are limited. Ben Geeman, an energy reporter at Axios, standing by to discuss this with us. Ben, good timing having you on here tonight, just as this news is breaking. Help this, and let's just break this down for people that are watching at home. What steps has the Trump administration taken to limit the Russian government's exposure to making a profit off of energy? And really, what is this announcement from Bessent undoing tonight?
Yeah, thank you for having me on. Good evening. So what this does is expands what had been a more limited waiver of sanctions on Russian oil that was applied only to Indian purchases. Now this has been broadened to other countries as well. And what you're seeing here is the Treasury Department, I think, trying to do two things at once. One is bring out another tool in the toolkit to try and temper the market a little bit. There's no silver bullet. There's no single tool that's going to do this, but they're trying different things. At the same time, I think you saw the Treasury Secretary attempting to perhaps preempt some of the criticism of this move that we can expect, which is that these strikes and this campaign against Iran are essentially on some level a gift to Vladimir Putin and his efforts to fund the war on Ukraine. Now, one thing I would note about that statement from the Treasury Secretary about where the kind of money and revenue is derived by the Russian government, I would also note, however, that the sort of dividing line between private companies and what benefits the Russian government is a little bit perhaps blurry.
Bessent saying this just moments ago, and perhaps there's more that we'll learn about this tomorrow, and I'll be looking out for official word from Trump himself if reporters perhaps ask him about this. You've been writing a lot about how the conflict in the Middle East has been impacting oil prices. Of course, Americans have noticed this huge spike at the pump as of late. Your reporting, I've been reading it, it says the administration is looking at a temporary Jones Act waiver to move fuel more easily between U.S. ports. What is the Jones Act, and could it actually bring some relief to Americans?
The Jones Act is a century-old law, actually a little bit older, that basically says that if you're moving goods on water from one U.S. port to another U.S. port, you need to be doing it on U.S.-owned, built, flagged, and crewed vessels, right? And so this has long been a point of contention among economists and others who feel that it creates inefficiencies in the market, that there should be more of a sort of open playing field for other ships to move this fuel. By waiving the Jones Act temporarily, well, they haven't just said whether they're going to do this yet. They said they're considering it. What this would theoretically enable is perhaps easier movement of petroleum products from the Gulf Coast, where prices are lower, to areas on the East Coast where they're higher. The sources I was talking to today were saying, look, this is perhaps something that could have a very minor effect on fuel prices, right? Perhaps put them a few cents lower than they would have otherwise been, even though this is still occurring in the context of this general rise. I think what this underscores is the fact that the administration has no single great solution to these rising or at least very, very high energy oil prices while the Strait of Hormuz remains effectively closed, right? We had the International Energy Agency coming out with a statement earlier today that this is the largest disruption in the history of the global oil market. Now, the International Energy Agency is a multilateral, multi-government institution. This is not a supermarket tabloid comment, if you will. They wouldn't say something like that lightly. So the scale of the disruption that we are seeing means that while the administration can try and pull some limited levers, which we've been discussing, to try and ease things a little bit, we are not going to see things go back to normal until the Strait of Hormuz, until maritime traffic is flowing through there again, and until things have a chance to sort of settle. One other thing I would add is that you've had a number of Gulf countries in the Persian Gulf that produce a lot of oil, like Kuwait and the UAE and others, who are having to sort of start to lower their actual production. Again, not just the exports of it on water, but the production itself, because places to store the oil are getting a little bit scarce. So this is a cascading series of disruptions that does not lend itself to any one answer. But again, you are seeing the White House trying to sort of take limited bites at the apple to make it perhaps not as bad as it would otherwise be.
Yeah, the White House is talking about, and this is again just another lever, another idea, but the U.S. is talking about tanker insurance, U.S.-backed tanker insurance to get ships moving despite the risk. What kind of insurance would be necessary to actually impact movements within the strait?
Yeah, that's right. An organization called the International Development Finance Corporation, sometime in the last week, I think it was about a week ago, said that they're offering this $20 billion program to sort of create this U.S. backing, because insurance rates, as you can imagine, for tankers attempting or that might have otherwise wanted to go to this area have just gone through the roof. And so you're seeing that as an attempt to ease things. It's not really clear the extent to which the industry is going to take them up on this, because the physical risk remains incredibly high. And that's why you've also had the U.S. government float this idea. It has not happened yet, but float this idea of having some type of military, naval escorts for tankers going through the strait. But while Iran's capacity has been certainly diminished, it can still wreak an incredible amount of havoc, as we've been seeing just through some attacks in recent days on tankers. And so, again, I think while this conflict lasts, you might see efforts to get some limited traffic going, or there's already a little bit, but have it go up a little bit beyond what it is right now. But while the hostilities remain, while this remains a hot war, the oil market is going to be incredibly convulsed, and there is no easy answer to that.
Yeah, how much momentum is there for naval protection in the strait?
I think if we were to see this, it would be sort of a multi-government effort. You've had some other governments talking about this as well. So the problem is it just takes a lot of time, and it's quite dangerous. So I candidly don't know. I'm a little bit skeptical that we would see widespread uptake of this, but I think it could perhaps provide at least a little bit of limited protection, and consequently a limited increase in the number of tankers moving through the area.
To the time in the nation's capital, approaching 9:45. Final question for you. If this conflict lasts weeks, and again, that's an if at this point, but Ben, if it does last weeks, what type of energy market could we be looking at in weeks?
Yeah, it's very difficult to know, because again, we would have to see the efficacy of some of these efforts to kind of ease things a little bit, even while the conflict is remaining. But right now, Brent crude oil, which is sort of the international benchmark, is trading at, I think the last time I checked before I came on, roughly around $100, right at that $100 mark. I think certainly, the $120, which is what it flew up to a few days ago, but then quickly came back down, would it certainly approach that, which is the level that we saw shortly after, or in the weeks after Russia invaded Ukraine? I think that is possible. Could it touch the $147 limit, kind of cap that we saw right before the financial crisis? This is, getting on 20 years ago. I think it was in 2007 or 2008 where we saw those levels. Sure. I mean, many things are in play. I mean, look, analysts, others get a lot of headlines by saying oil could go to $150, oil could go to $200. Some of that can be a little bit hyperbolic, but we are in absolutely uncharted territory here. So I would be hesitant to say that nothing is off the table.
Ben Gieman reports on energy for Politico. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
You bet. All right, time for us to hit a quick commercial break. A live look at the Capitol on this Thursday evening. Alon Burstein joining me in a moment. We're showing him your questions about the Middle East in a moment.
Okay, so it's going to keep it moving to Liberal Hive Mind.
Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. And of course, here's the meme of the day brought to you by 5mind.com. Okay, well, holy frickin' crap, it appears Iran just made another catastrophic mistake. A couple days ago, we were covering how the Iranian president basically got cold feet, started apologizing to neighboring Arab nations for the strikes on American targets within their borders. He apologized, said it was a catastrophic mistake, and that it wouldn't happen again. Then, of course, what followed is exactly what you'd expect with these Islamist radical regimes. They say one thing, then did another, and immediately started launching more attacks. And that, of course, was freaking stupid. But it could have possibly been explained as, you know, the information not traveling across the chain of command. Someone didn't get the memo. The strike was already approved before the apology and the commitment to no longer attack their Arab neighbors. But now I think it's quite clear, no, it was simply a diversion tactic, a lie, or possibly their puppet president not actually having the authority to really stop anything. And so it appears now the Iranian regime has doubled down on stupid, launching more attacks on their Arab neighbors, this time not even targeting a US base inside Arab borders, but rather sending kamikaze drones into the country of Oman and lighting up oil tanks at their port of Salale. Iran is now incinerating Oman's petroleum facilities, and I'm sure many people will try to spin this into, oh, it's actually a very deep strategy and proof that Iran is still very much in this. But folks, this doesn't look like strategy. It doesn't look like Iran getting the upper hand. This looks again like desperation. It looks like the regime's death throes. It looks like possibly the dumbest thing they've done yet. And of course, it's sparking fury, not just from President Trump, who's obviously going to respond in kind, likely respond 10 times harder. But it's also sparking the fury of these Arab Gulf nations, once allies of Iran, once neutral arbiters in this whole situation. Now it appears they're actively turning on the Iranian regime and requesting help from the UN Security Council. Let me show you guys exactly what's happening. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so we've got some stunning footage from the port of Salalah. I mean, yet again, another ridiculous play from the Iranians. You know, probably their best angle right now is to play the victim, to pretend as if they're not actually a threat and really they're just the victims of Donald Trump's crazed war ambitions. Basically feeding into the left-wing narrative, I think, would probably be their strongest play right here. But instead, they're engaging in indiscriminate acts of terror and not even targeting American assets. I mean, sure, you could argue that this port is beneficial to American forces. I think it's used as a refueling spot, if I'm not mistaken. But this is very much Gulf state infrastructure. They're attacking their own neighbors. You know, kind of hard to pretend as if you're the good guy to maintain good faith when you're attacking hotels in Dubai and petroleum stations in Oman. I mean, this is the exact kind of strike that Iran should have avoided if they had any shred of strategic common sense left. It's obvious common sense has left the building, folks. This is just pure desperation. This is cause as much chaos as possible. They probably saw what was happening with oil prices, the price of oil shooting down to $80 a barrel. Their stated ambition was to shoot oil up to $200 a barrel. That was their big trump card, right? Well, obviously, when they realized that markets weren't reacting, this is what they decided to do. Their plan is to just blow shit up and cause chaos and hope that it benefits them. And well, obviously, when your military strategy is so half-baked and idiotic and desperate, well, it's likely to blow up in your frickin' face, and that's exactly what's happening.
About what it can do here. It thought that if it could strike these other Arab states, that the Arab states would put pressure on the United States to end this war. And this is the same thing that's going on with all this focus in the Strait of Hormuz too, Dana. They're trying to get Americans here at home to say this war is not worth it, and to try to get Arab states to tell the United States this war is not worth it. It has backfired. The Arab states have now, they want this UN Security Council resolution to condemn the Iranians for carrying out these strikes against these Gulf states. And so there is, I think, great diplomatic success on the part of the United States and Israelis to say, look, the world is now organized against the Iran regime. They're the ones that are isolated. That's going to be really important for this psychological aspect of this war, to get the regime to finally buckle and say, look, we're done fighting. We got to put together some kind of group of people who are going to be more compliant with the United States.
Perhaps you can help us understand a little bit what that red line might be for the Gulf states.
Well, good to be with you, Will. And I think it, needs to highlight how successful this operation has been for the first 11 days. Obviously, our Gulf allies and those that are, taking a lot of these incoming ballistic missiles and drones do have an ever decreasing amount of patience to not join the fight. And, in a coordinated manner, there may come a time where they join the United States. But, right now we have devastated their Navy. They're combat ineffective. We've taken out, dramatic amounts of their ballistic missiles and drone capabilities. And most importantly, we've taken out their ability to produce more. And, Iran should be careful, because if they provoke the Gulf allies to joining the fight, that could be even more, bombs on their head and more firepower behind the United States and Israel's efforts.
Iran is playing with fire right now. The Gulf states, those used to be their allies in the region. Iran has the communist nations and their Muslim brothers. Well, the commies' balls have shriveled up, let's be real. They've shot back up into the body. China and Russia is nowhere to be seen, M-I-frickin-A. And now the Muslim Brotherhood in the Gulf seems to be evaporating in real time. Instantly, the GCC, the Gulf Cooperation Council, released a furious statement condemning Iran. And now we're learning that Gulf states are going to the UN. Not that that's going to make a difference, as if Iran really cares what the UN Security Council is going to be writing, but still showing how the Gulf nations are totally turning on this desperate, out-of-control regime. At some point, we might end up seeing the straw that breaks the camel's back, and some of these neighboring Gulf nations start joining in, bombing Iranian military targets alongside us. At this point, you could obviously justify it, considering Iran's using weapons against them. An absolute disaster. I don't know how you spin any of this as being good for Iran. Yet, of course, there's so many people all over social media who continuously make these suggestions, and they're using this situation as well. This is now apparently proof that Iran is not backing down, and they're fighting back, and they're in it to win it. But I don't know how you come to that conclusion. This is the most desperate play. And not only that, the fact that they're using these kamikaze, what people call suicide drones, that tells you all that you need to know. It's all they've got left. Their navy's been obliterated, their missile capacity's degraded, and so all they have left are these little drones that they're flying into the dumbest targets imaginable. And I get that it's a point of concern, it's shocking, it implies that they're still attacking, they still have an offensive, but really the question is, for how much longer? There's no serious missile strikes, there's no reports of mass casualties, all they have left are these little drones. And that will not last very long, because these drones come with a major vulnerability. Every time they launch one of these drones, they expose something. Their launch locations get detected. We start to figure out exactly how they're operating these networks, and slowly but surely, the entire drone program will be dismantled. I'm paying attention to what's going on here, and for me, I'm only seeing one inevitable result: the absolute collapse of the Iranian regime. Pretty soon, militarily, they'll be left with nothing. And now it appears, thanks to their absolutely idiotic decision-making, they'll be left with no more allies in the region as well. And that, my friends, may be a worse fate than having your military infrastructure completely obliterated. Anyways, that's what I got. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
All right, so we're going to go to the last video of the night, and that's reserved for Tyson De La Cruz. So here we go.
Our investigation was to determine whether or not Governor Walz and Attorney General Ellison knew about the fraud. And the answer is a definitive yes.
America, that right there just ended Tim Walz's political career. House Oversight Chair James Comer didn't dance around it. Yes, Walz knew about the fraud and let it happen anyways.
But it's clear there was a massive failure of oversight and, quite frankly, a failure of leadership. One wonders whether either of you should bear some personal responsibility for the billions of dollars siphoned off by fraudsters under your noses.
While Walz was ignoring whistleblowers and letting billions and billions of dollars disappear, guess who's getting stuck with the bill? You are.
The Minnesota Department of Revenue estimates property taxes across the state are going up 7% this year.
Damn.
That is nearly $1 billion.
Who pays for Democrat mismanagement? Taxpayers. Every
That's
single
a lot of money.
time. What is up, guys? Tyson De La Cruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. Let me show you exactly how Timmy Tampon Walz orchestrated one of the most brazen cover-ups in American political history. Comer's investigation blew the lid off of everything. They interviewed career state employees, registered Democrats, by the way, who've been screaming about the fraud for years, and we've been covering on this channel for months. These weren't partisan hacks. These were people who voted for Walz and still couldn't stomach what they were seeing.
We brought in all the whistleblowers from Minnesota. These were career state employees. Almost all of them were registered Democrats. They've been blowing the whistle about fraud for years. They testified under oath in our transcribed interviews that they knew about the fraud. They had repeatedly warned both Governor Walz and Attorney General Ellison, and they were told to stand down.
Notice what happened here. They didn't just ignore the warning signs, they actively shut them down. Stand down, they said. That's what you tell someone when you know what's happening and you want it to continue. Plain and simple.
Every state employee I met with, seems to me, has a very strong commitment to helping solve this problem. They've been forthcoming. They've been cooperative.
Oh, now they want to cooperate after billions and billions of dollars disappear and Fed threats in regards of cutting off funding. That's like your teenager promising to clean the room after you've already grounded them. Too late, Timmy. And speaking of people who suddenly care about accountability, remember what I told you about Democrats only move when they're in the corner? Watch what happens when Walz gets asked directly about the transformation plan. So Tim Walz's brilliant solution to fraud his administration allowed is to give more power to the Department of Human Services. You know, this is the same agency where the fraud was festering. This is genius.
Well, Governor Tim Walz wants to attack fraud, he says, with some major changes to the way Minnesota handles Medicaid. He'd centralize administration and oversight in the Department of Human Services.
Okay, maybe this is the same game plan that he used to get tampons in the boys' locker rooms. Identify the problem he created, propose a solution that makes it worse, and then act like he's doing Minnesota a favor.
The Maxis system is grossly outdated. It provides immense hours of frustration for really talented people trying to do the work.
Wait, you're telling me Minnesota's been running Medicaid on technology from the 1980s?
Damn.
Walz just now mentioned this. How long has he been governor for? How many billions and billions of dollars disappeared while he was playing with software that required a floppy disk to operate? Those of you that don't know what a floppy disk is, look it up. For my youngsters out there.
The Republican Representative Kristen Robbins blasted DHS Commissioner Shireen Gandhi for being a no-show. Robbins says the committee has invited
Oregon
the commissioner
Trail
twice.
on a floppy
After
disk.
this commissioner running this dumpster fire, too busy to testify. Been invited twice, hasn't showed up once. That's what accountability looks like under Timmy Tampon Walz. Avoid it completely. Now here's where it goes from corrupt to criminal. While Timmy Tampon Walz was telling whistleblowers to stand down and letting fraud run absolutely wild, Minnesota was racking up a bill, and guess who's going to pay for it?
In Blaine, where you live, it's gone up 15%, 15%, and 10% over 3 years. And Blaine is a diverse community. One of the things I just want to ask is, like, how are people, what do you hear from your constituents?
A lot of my constituents are scared whether they're going to be able to stay living in their homes.
That's $1 billion in property tax increases. And guess who's getting the hardest? Seniors with fixed income, working families already crushed by inflation, people who followed the rules and paid their taxes, while Timmy Tampon Walz's administration let criminals steal theirs.
The overwhelming number of Minnesotans agree that tips should not be taxed and overtime should not be taxed. So this would be a way to conform with the federal taxes, which is beneficial in its own right, plus to provide some relief.
Look at the irony here. Republicans are trying to cut taxes on tips and overtime, things Trump already did at a federal level. And Walz is over here hijacking up property taxes to 7% to cover for the fraud that he let happen.
This violence does not make us safer. It does not address fraud, waste, and abuse. It doesn't help families with health care, does not grow or build small businesses. And it certainly, as we're continuing to discuss, is not preventing the kind of fraud that Republicans are discussing here today.
And there it is. The Democrat playbook in action. When confronted about billions and billions of dollars in fraud, just pivot to Trump immigration enforcement. Don't talk about the whistleblowers you silence. Don't explain why your DHS commissioner won't testify. Just blame ICE and hope your voters are dumb enough to fall for it. Now, James Comer says the evidence is definitive. Walz knew, Ellison knew. They ignored the warning signs. So what happens next?
With all my years of experience, accountability is elusive because what is accountability? Exposure is partially accountability, but you want to see people in handcuffs. You want to see the money returned. And to that
Right.
extent, I think James Comer is doing a fantastic job. He is exposing these things. Now the big question is, what is the Department of Justice going to do? Because if you
Yeah.
have whistleblowers with no political bent other than trying to do the right thing, and you have elected officials knowingly allowing fraud to go on, as the allegation is, what is accountability going to be?
That's your answer, America. Elusive.
Its accountability is elusive.
And you and I get audited by the IRS for $600. But Tim
Yep.
Walz can let billions and billions of dollars disappear. And his biggest
Literally.
consequence is having to testify before Congress, where Democrats will defend him anyways.
Walz and Ellison condemned fraud and said the state is working to do what it can to find, arrest, and convict fraudsters of any kind.
Oh, they condemn fraud. How brave of them. They condemn the one thing that they allowed to happen. That's like an arsonist condemning a fire after burning down the house. America, here's what Comer's investigation just proved. Tim Walz didn't fail to stop the fraud. He chose to let it happen. Whistleblowers, his own employees, Democrats who voted for him, came to his office with evidence. They went to Ellison, and both of them said, stand down. Now Walz wants to transform the Department of Human Services by giving more control, even though that's where the fraud was happening. He's using 1980s technology as an excuse, even though he had years to fix it. And his DHS commissioner won't even show up to testify. Meanwhile, Minnesota seniors are terrified that they'll lose their homes because property taxes jump up 7%, nearly $1 billion to cover the mess Walz created by protecting Somalia fraudsters. But here's the part that hardly anybody's missing. Walz dropped out of his re-election race. So, in my opinion, he's going to avoid all consequences. He quit, the first sitting governor in modern history to surrender because the fraud got so bad, he obviously couldn't govern anymore. That's not a scandal. That is a collapse without consequences. And Minnesota voters, they're stuck paying for it with the 7% tax increase. While the criminals,
that's
the
a big
Somalia pirates, the Somalia criminals that Walz protected walk free. What did I tell you? Follow the money every single time. Let me know what you think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.
Great upload. Once again, it's time for me to run myself because I'm tired. You know, it's been a long night, did over 3 hours easily. And, you know, tomorrow we're going to get some more news. So I'll review that tomorrow. And as far as today is, have a good morning, good afternoon, and a good night. And I'll catch you on the flip side. Hopefully we'll end the week. I don't know. It's not going to be good. I got this pain in my head. And I'm getting like a lot of pain in my head and I'm not feeling good. Feels like something is happening over in Iran. It's not going to get better. You know, if this is how world wars break out, once the British jumps in, you know, once the British jumps in and everybody else starts lining up and bringing up all their ships and stuff, then it's like a world war. Now, will China be stupid enough to try to challenge the world? I mean, Russia is not stupid. Russia has just made a deal to help the world with oil. So, like, people forget Trump's a businessman. Trump could wheel and deal. People are gonna die. He said it himself. He knew. I knew. Who doesn't know when you're at a battle and you're at like a operation / war? Listen, if you're in that area, you're in danger. The world is in danger, and a lot of servicemen and women passed away. And now today we had a refueling jet crashed in western Iraq. They emphasize very much the friendly territory. So how would they know if it's friendly or not? I wonder how the plane, did it crash? You know, like crash and blew up and everyone's dead type of crash. Like, that's very sad, you know, but we're at a war. We're knocking at the door at the Third World War. Will the door open up or will that bitch stay closed? They're really trying to push for it. They really want to have it. With that said, have a good night, and I'll definitely catch y'all tomorrow. Peace for now.